What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Passive Tree podcast dedicated talking about life, Path of Exile 2, and everything in between. And today on episode 43, I'm joined by a fellow PoE content creator, streamer, and blaster. He's none other than Oscrix. Welcome on, and how are you doing today, sir?
Hi, I'm doing great, Blaze. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Dude, it's my pleasure, man. As sort of like a sentimental note, I actually first learned about you through a chat with Darth Microtransaction on this very podcast. We were chatting, and I said to him, "Dude, I'm a mural artist. I paint murals. That's my job." And he was like, "Oh, you're the second PoE player that I know that's a mural artist." And I was like, "Wait,
It
who's
is
the
a funny
first one?"
coincidence.
And
Yeah,
he was like, "Yeah,
it
my
is a
homie
very funny
Oscrix."
coincidence.
So yeah, I know we kind of
Yeah.
I had this question kind of tucked aside for later on, but I just wanted to ask you, like, for me, I have a very clear like memory of my first like time ever painting a mural. What was your like first mural that you ever painted? What was the story behind that?
Well, I was already making a lot of traditional art, and a friend of mine encouraged me to sign up for a festival that was looking for a mural artist, despite I hadn't really worked on that scale. And I thought, okay, yeah, I'll try it. And they had me to do it, and I did it, and I was immediately like, oh, this is fun. I like doing mural work. And it also was nice because I got connected with other people who were interested in that in the area. So, that really helps. You figure out, oh, there actually is like a space for me to do this. There is opportunity for me to, put my hat in the ring to do this and stuff like that. So that's what got me into it. But before that, just wanting to make stuff, just wanting to be creative really is what got me into it eventually, I guess.
That's cool. Yeah, I feel like as somebody who's been doing art my whole life, I don't know how long you've been doing it, but usually people who are creative like have been doing it since like they were kids at least, and I've been drawing since like ever I could remember basically. And yeah, my first mural was through essentially like a Kijiji ad, like basically Craigslist, like a Canadian version of Craigslist.
Mm.
I had no experience with murals at all, but I heard that like, it'd be a good thing to get into, and I had been painting graffiti for a while at this point. And so I fired up an
Yeah.
ad on we'll call it Craigslist for all intents and purposes. And some business reached out to me and was like, "We want to pay you to do a mural in our business." And I was like, "Oh my God." I think at the time it was like $1,000 or something. Like, and for me, I was like, "Holy shit, dude, I'm gonna get paid $1,000 to
Yeah,
like paint on
exactly.
someone's wall." And so I
Yeah.
did the job. And looking back on it, this was like I think almost a decade ago or more at this point. And they actually ended up hiring me back and back again and again, and they ended up becoming like a franchised business. And so I ended up doing 3 of their like locations. And yeah, so it was just a crazy like origin story for murals essentially. Do you have any murals planned
That's
like that are coming up soon, or
Yeah, yeah, I definitely do, and I'm helping organize another festival up here that will bring together a lot of artists to kind of encourage the same moment of opportunity I had and had more people here painting and stuff like that this summer. So I'm kind of focused on working towards that at the moment. But I also have some private stuff that I'm trying to do. But your story really says the same thing, right? I mean, it's just about that one random moment of opportunity, and that's kind of the thing I try to stay focused on, is like you have so little agency over what opportunity you have, but you can be adaptable and jump at the opportunities you do have, and yeah, murals could be quite a great opportunity. I find that in if you want to make traditional art, tattoos and murals, that's basically the 2 biggest fields you can work in and manage to pay your bills or half your bills or whatever with them. So yeah, that's definitely the best way to go, it seems like. And I just like making stuff, so for me it's like just let me make something and I'll be happy.
absolutely. I love that you're helping like kind of contribute to like the mural scene in Alaska too. Like I don't really know if there's a lot of artists. Maybe you can share more about like if there's like quite a few people out there painting, or if there's not that many people. What's it like out there for the mural
Yeah,
scene?
yeah. I mean, well, you got to imagine what happens when you lock someone in a cell for like 9 months of the year, in the
Yeah.
frigid cold. They have to get a hobby, right? So there's a lot of people up here that are very good at their hobbies because they spend, an inordinate amount of time of the year on their hobby. Unless you really want to get outside during the winter, that's going to cut in your hobby time. but maybe your hobbies are outside in the winter, right? But yeah, there's a lot of people who are really skilled artists up here. Um, there's a whole city that's really ahead of the rest of Alaska on like painting everything with murals. They have a whole mural kind of thing going on. But yeah, there's a lot of artists up here. It's a very hippie culture too. There's a bit of free love kind of agency that kind of sprouted up in the wilderness of Alaska. So there's a lot of that going on as well. Yeah, very artsy place for sure, I would say.
Oh yeah, I can see the cities or the walls exploding during those 3 months because, as you mentioned, people are cooped up for so long, and I know firsthand. Like, I don't love painting outside when it's cold. Like, I'm much more happy in the
Yeah,
sun, like bask in the sun, maybe a cold drink in my hand and whatnot.
yeah, it's
Um,
much nicer.
yeah. Speaking of hobbies, I think we all know that we both share another hobby as well, aside from murals, Path of Exile.
That's
Generally
right.
speaking, how has the Mirage League experience been for you so far?
It's been really fun. I am so happy to see a new end game. We've been kind of deprived of that for a while. People who've played for a while will remember that like yearly we would get a new, like pretty dramatic change to the way that the Atlas worked and stuff like that. And I think it's probably been like north of 4 years since we got one for PoE one, I think, right? Like maybe even north of 5 years. So it was overdue. So I'm glad to see that something changed with the end game, and it was really well executed. There's a couple UI things that I think could have been better, but other than tiny stuff like that, I thought it was great. So I've been having a lot of fun. How about you? You been enjoying it?
Yeah, I think the end game changed for me, and I've only experienced the end game a few times in Path of Exile 1. This is the farthest I've ever gotten. So I think that speaks like volumes in terms
Nice.
of my own enjoyment. Like, I actually have all my
Good.
void stones, like I'm pushing
Yeah, yeah.
delve. I really love delve. And yeah, I have a bunch of goals for myself that I'm trying to do. And I think they've done a terrific job. It's interesting because I remember watching the 2 presentations, like the 2 Q or, sorry, the 2 interviews, like, Jung Rohn had one and Zizaran had one. And I think, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken, like, Octavian and Andrew kinda came out and said that they have, like, their own dedicated, like, small team now for Path of Exile 1. And so I don't think it's necessarily a coincidence that we're seeing like such a successful banger league now that they kind of like have sorted out their inner workings of like there's people who are dedicated now to PoE 1 and then there's people who are probably a lot more people dedicated to PoE 2. So what do you think? Do you think that that has something to do with it or are we off base
I
here?
think I think you're on the money, man. Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, at least from what they've said in the interviews, I agree. I've heard the same stuff. I mean, it sounds like what they've decided is that instead of having people jump between projects constantly, they're gonna just give them one problem to solve, which I think is, that's always gonna result in a better product in that instance because it's hard to switch your thought process between two problems constantly. It's much easier to work one problem and sleep and dream of one problem and wake up and keep working that one problem than keep switching. So yeah, I think that's a great change. I think a lot of the problems that we see are just because they don't have enough people, and that is really hard to fix, and that's also something you had to fix like years ago. So it's just kind
Yeah.
of something that has to be done, in real time now, pretty much. You can't really just acquire people overnight and have them trained and stuff like that, you know.
Especially on such a complicated like project or series of projects too. Like, we like to think that there's a lot of people out there with like a very in-depth knowledge base. But I think the problem, and I could be totally wrong about this, was that they had to hire about a bunch of people that are from like New Zealand specifically. So I'm not too sure
Right.
if the employment pool of like really like knowledgeable PoE players, how deep that pool is exists in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So yeah, must be
And
tough.
besides the point, I mean, even if they are in New Zealand, they have to train them on all their proprietary systems and tools and processes within the company and stuff, all that stuff just it takes time. I think a lot of people have crazy imaginary timetables about how fast a business can turn around stuff about PoE, and then they let that run rampant on the forums and Reddit.
Yeah, it's
They
like,
let
come
that
on.
out, unleash
A
it.
comp a company that's been making one game for 10 plus years, should it perfectly transition to two games? Like, I don't really know of any
Yeah,
company that's
yeah.
really achieved that. Maybe Blizzard back in the day, but I don't know. Like, it's a very tough undertaking for sure. So yeah.
Hey, they're making it work, I think, at least.
For sure. And I think that zero point 0.5, it makes me more optimistic for it, even more so because now that like we have this beautiful, successful Mirage League for PoE1, which I'm having so much fun playing, you are, and I think the general consensus is that most people are in love with it, right? It
Yeah,
just
it's a good
points
one.
yeah, it points all signs towards like zero point 0.5 being really good too. And kind of to tie everything together, like as you mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, they started doing these Atlas reworks, and they kind of took the Waystone like idea kind of from what PoE2 had done, where there's not like a particular layout attached to it, and brought that into PoE1. Like, do you think that they're potentially doing this as a way to maybe see how people are responding to it, and then bringing it back into PoE2? Like, what are your thoughts about that?
I think there's always a question about that, but there's no doubt that they're gonna learn from each game. Yeah, totally. They're like maybe it's a deliberate test or maybe it's not, but at the end of the day, they're 100% gonna learn from, the lessons they learn in each game. And they've said as much as well, but I mean, yeah, it's unrealistic for them to expect them to just ignore what's going on. They're learning in real time about what works and what doesn't. So, yeah, I think so. And if it is, great. I think I mean, we could write 15 podcasts about this topic, about the Atlas and PoE2, but it
For sure.
definitely needs to be changed. It definitely needs to be changed in a dramatic way, I think.
Absolutely. And we will get into a full-on discussion
Yeah,
about the end
yeah.
game. This is like the first time that we've actually had a chance to like sit down and like chat and stuff. So I'm looking forward to like getting
Yeah,
all of your
yeah.
takes and perspectives on that. Before we go any further on like the end game stuff, I'd love to talk a bit more about Mirage. So you started off with
Mm.
Holy Strike, which is a new holy skill in PoE1. Just, generally speaking, how did the build perform, and how is the skill feeling?
The skill was pretty fun, but it crashed constantly, which was such a disappointment because I thought to myself, oh, whatever, I'll throw caution to the wind. I'll play the new thing. Maybe it'll suck. It's okay. And it actually was pretty fun to play, except it just crashed constantly. Like, I think I probably averaged like 15 to 20 crashes to desktop a day of playing, like the whole league. And by the time I re-rolled to another character, it still wasn't fixed after like 7 days. So that sucked. And then I went on the forums. That was not a rare occurrence. Like everybody else who was playing Holy Strike also experienced that. So I actually really like the skill, but the whole experience for me is definitely colored by that. And it did suck because then, I mean, what am I supposed to say to people? They're like, what do you think of the new skill? Yeah, I really like it, except for, it crashes every like 15 minutes. The tough spot for Holy Strike. So I liked it, but I liked it minus the crashes. That's how my League Start experience went with it pretty much.
Jeez, 15 to 20 crashes a day. That's pretty rough. And I know
Yeah,
a
it
lot of
was actually
people.
absurd.
Yeah. Like, that's
Yeah,
bad. Like, that's bad.
crazy.
I think a lot of people had, like, a similar perspective when it came to, like, performance in PoE1. Like, they were loving the gameplay when they were able to play the game, but, like, for what
Yeah.
like, whether it was, like, server problems for people in Europe, I didn't really
Yeah.
realize that, like,
Oh my
some of the
god.
individual specific skills were kind of, like, causing crashes too, so that feels bad.
I only know about that one from my experience, but yeah, I have no idea
So you
for the
kinda just
others at
got
least.
you kinda got unlucky with that, but let's
I
just
oh
say in a
yeah,
perfect world, if
I
it
got
wasn't
lucky.
crashing, would it have been, like, one of your, like, favorite new skills that
It
you've
would have
tried
been
recently?
yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was a really fun skill to play with. So yeah, I would say so. Yeah, it was good.
Okay. And y
Just no
and you
crashes next time.
yeah, that's wild. And so you died on that character, right? If I'm not mistaken, after hitting 100?
No, I died on a different character twice. I died
Oh, okay.
once to Avaldo's and me being a fool, and then I died to Alaskan power companies on my other character version of it too. I was in the middle of
Oh,
like farming
no.
Cirrus, and then they just pull power on me.
As somebody who,
Yep.
like, basically like, if I'm not mistaken, you essentially engage with Path of Exile 1 and 2 mostly on hardcore. Has Alaskan
Yep.
power companies been a big problem for playing hardcore? That seems dangerous.
Yeah, but that's been my experience playing online games my whole life being up here. So I'm used to playing with lag and it crashing, and I just have to deal with it pretty much.
Jeez, bro,
Yep,
that's
there
rough,
ain't no
man.
gigabit fiber up here or anything like that. Nothing
For,
like that.
for sure. Yeah, I had some like while I was doing my research, I was started watching some of your old videos, and I didn't realize some of like the achievements that you have done in Path of Exile and Path of Exile 1 and 2. I kind of want to jump to those really quickly because I think it ties in really nicely with like you doing this um, in hardcore in some cases, or in most cases, while playing in Alaska on like dodgy internet. So the first one was um, rank 1 ranger for a merciless gauntlet. It didn't say what year that was in, so I wasn't able to find out exactly when that was. And then
That
this is
was
all from your
last
Twitch
year, the
bio.
most recent one.
Okay, which is amazing. And then first level 100 witch in PoE 2, not in hardcore.
Yep.
And then and then first player to finish all void stones in hardcore ruthless mode. And that one actually blew my mind. I haven't even tried ruthless yet, but I've heard that it's like really crazy. So out of these three really difficult accomplishments, which one was the most difficult to do?
The most difficult to do is probably the ruthless one because that was a really insane amount of time. Like, I think I was probably playing on average, like, I didn't play every day, so we average it out. It was like nearly 3 months of playing, probably average like 6 hours a day or something like that, of to get to that progress point. And it's just because like they just slowed down the progress of the game so dramatically that everything was just way slower. I played that league because it was new, and I just wanted to try something new. And that was also how I got into hardcore too. It turned out. I was playing on softcore almost exclusively at the time, except I try hardcore like in the off league time. And then I was thinking, well, I'll try Ruthless because it's hard and it's new, and I'll try it out. And then it's like, well, if I'm gonna play the hard version, I should play the hard version. But I still wanted to trade, so yeah, that's what I ended up doing. Was playing on hardcore, and then I just liked it. It was fun. So yep, I never went back.
Nice, dude. That's amazing. Yeah, I have yet to try Ruthless, but there's an inner masochist in myself as well. Like I love playing hardcore in PoE 2, and people, especially in 0.1 and 0.2, often compared like PoE 2 to being as like a ruthless mode in like PoE 1, essentially.
Yeah, yep, yep.
Yeah.
It
So
was a
I feel
very
like
apt comparison for sure too.
yeah, I feel like I want to go back and try it eventually, maybe even during Mirage League, honestly, because I'm really enjoying this league so much that I feel like it can potentially keep me entertained like all the way to PoE 2, which is awesome. Have you gone back and played any Ruthless since you've done that achievement? Or are you kind of like, I've done everything I need to do
I
in
have
that
played
mode?
some. I've played some for fun on the off seasons occasionally, but yeah, I kind of do feel like I did what I wanted to do. I like trying for firsts of stuff when that opportunity comes up when things are new, because the point I like the most about games is when nobody knows anything and you just get to freely, read the game, understand the rules, make inferences, make decisions and stuff like that. So for me, when things like Ruthless come out, it's exciting because well, there's a whole world to discover. There's a bunch of rules I don't know that I can go and learn about now. So the learning part for me is the most fun. But it's still fun and Ruthless to boot it up because you get excited about rare items. Like it's hard to get like a rare item, which is weird. And you get excited about one chaos orb because you see one chaos orb per 2 hours in Ruthless or whatever, instead of 20 per map or whatever. Yeah, so it's kind of like it just turns the dopamine dial back, and you get excited about smaller things, and the progression is longer that way. Which yeah, as long as it's within context, that's the whole point. If one blacksmith's whetstone is exciting, then well, it's exciting. It doesn't matter whether it's a divine or a blacksmith's whetstone. It's rare to you, and you need it.
I feel the exact same way. And the way that you describe sort of like the fresh perspective where it's like less or not solved at all, you're kind of getting it at the ground floor. is exactly how I felt about PoE 2 when I jumped in 0.1, and I kind of had the same sort of like way that you described with the loot scarcity. And I personally really like this because, yeah, as you mentioned, like, you find a flask that had like gain charges like periodically on it, and it was like, holy fuck, like this is huge. I can actually like
Yeah, I
go into
really needed that.
Geonor.
Yeah,
And I feel
exactly.
like we've lost a little bit of that in PoE 2 now, where it kind of feels like loot based on, a lot of player feedback. A lot of people didn't like how scarce, currency and rare items were and stuff like that. So they changed it. But, I think I can relate to exactly what you said, where it was like the game was harder, the loot felt harder to obtain, and it was fresh, right? It was new. No one really knew what they were doing. And so that combination really like hit me hard. And I fell in love, man. I fell in love with PoE too. And yeah, so that's
That's
that's why I
awesome.
still play on hardcore SSF, is because it kind of continues that sort of that feeling that I had in 0.1. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And you've been playing stuff that's not even ES, so you're a real masochist. I mean, you're even more of a masochist than me if you play with red health in hardcore PoE2.
I like to see where red health is at every league, because I started out as a warrior using armor and life in 0.1. And so I feel like it's good to try it every single league just to see like, are the changes that they're making to, to armor, adding in like elemental damage application to armor and whatnot, how is it making these builds feel? And so
Yeah.
far we're not there yet. um,
No, we
yeah.
aren't. The numbers just
But
don't add up, unfortunately. Yeah, compared to ES, it's pretty ridiculous what the numbers
yeah.
are when you plug them in all in.
The closest I've got to is Timu Energy Shield, or otherwise known as Sorcery Ward. I did that in Timmy's league, where I got
Mm,
to observe you popping off, and we got to play with in the same league as each other, and that actually was really fun. And it's kind of ironic because the best way to build these life builds was to just not even scale life at all, which kind of feels wrong, but at the same time, it like
yeah.
it was the way to solve it. So I'm hoping that Witch Hunter doesn't get changed, especially Sorcery Ward, because it really is an amazing layer of defense. And yeah,
Sorcery Ward's
so
great. The game needs way more sorcery wards. That's really what it needs. It's
yeah,
because that's actually just a good. Yeah, like you said, it's good. I mean, it has one weakness. It's not good at damage over time. It does nothing against that, and that's it. Like other than that, it's great. Really, really good. So that's kind of how defense should be. It's really great, and then it has one weakness, and maybe you can work to try and fix that weakness. You know, so hopefully we get more of that stuff. I know a lot of people who really enjoy hardcore in PoE1, they enjoy it because there's so many options on how you can make your guy tanky and live, and that becomes a fun problem to solve next to your like how much damage you do. And when it's so binary, like in PoE2, I see a lot of people switching off of hardcore because they're not interested. Because there really is only one answer. If you click Chaos Inoculation and you wear Energy Shield gear, you're like 5 times tankier than anybody else, and that's too dramatic of a of a difference for people to be interested in like building other characters anymore. Except for Sorkward. Sorkward is a great example. That's actually good. Really, really good defense.
it is. Yeah, and as you mentioned, like I love hardcore for that like problem solving, the defensive problem solving, I should say.
Yeah, it's
And
fun. It makes more
yeah,
opportunity cost.
it does. And like, yeah, I'm glad you brought up damage over time, because yes, that is like the weakness to Sorcery Ward White. And so it's fun because there are ways to actually like spec out of certain like things in Path of Exile 2, like poisons and bleeds and stuff like that, or ignites, if you
Mhm.
have like the right, passive tree investment. And so it was just cool kind of. And again, like this is sort of why I try these different builds, is just because we all know that if you want to optimally play defensive in PoE2, it's like, go top right of the tree, energy shield all day. But
Yeah,
what else can
yeah.
we do? You know what I mean? What else is working? I think is a fun way to look at it. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
yeah, I'm excited to see hopefully some changes to in 0.5 with regards to defenses. Before we get into more like PoE2 stuff, I'd love to ask you some sort of like preliminary gaming questions if you're cool with that. Get a little bit of
Yeah,
Oscrix
yeah.
lore. What do you say?
Okay, yeah, sounds great. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so the first question I want to ask you is, when did you first fall in love with video games?
Oh man, immediately. As soon as I could touch them, pretty much. I think the first game I was really addicted to was probably the first Pokemon. was probably the first game that I really got addicted to as a kid. Pokemon, I think I had Blue, and just playing that and then grinding, collecting monsters. Yeah, all right. Well, that neuron was connected in my brain for the rest of time after that, pretty much. And
Yes,
then
dude.
yeah, that went on to a lot of other stuff. I but mostly I think RPGs, things with consistent progression have always been the things that have really excited me the most. Stuff where it feels like, I play one day and then I get on the next day and my guy's better. I've got more Pokemon, whatever the case is, higher XP or whatever. Progression systems, I think, is really what ended up hooking me to games. But like I said, for me, it's just I really love problem solving and learning game system rules and stuff. So even traditional card games and stuff like that, I really enjoy board games. So just games in general. I love games in general, pretty much. I always have.
Yes, dude. Okay, so Pokemon Blue on the Game Boy was your first like moment where you're like,
Yeah,
damn, like I love video games. I think a lot of people,
yeah,
I think that were probably around the same age, had that moment. I had Pokemon Red, and my brother had Blue, and I think my mind couldn't actually process like the genius of Pokemon back then because what they did was so fantastic where it was like, there were two separate games that were essentially the exact same game, but there were a few minor differences. And that allowed people like yourself and myself to trade with each other and evolve our Pokemon and complete that collection. And it required that human interaction, right? And when I was a kid, this was just something that kind of goes right over your head. Looking back on it now, though, I was like, this is fucking genius. Like, this is crazy. Like, they're selling more games,
yeah,
and
yeah.
the way that you progress through the game is actually having to interact with other people. So it was just like amazing, man. I love Pokemon so
Yeah,
much.
that was a really genius decision, wasn't it? I mean, making it more social and bringing kind of social aspect into it. Like you said, I mean, you're going to sell way more. That's for sure. And I'm sure that's what they thought when they thought of it. They're like, "Oh, this is a great idea. These kids are going to be talking to each other." Then the kids are going to see kids talking to each other. They'll be like, "What are you guys doing?" They'll be like, "Oh, we're trading Pokemon. No big deal." They'd be like, "Well, I want to trade Pokemon too." It's going to spread like
Get
wildfire.
the link cable out,
Yeah,
boys.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it did work too. Yeah, that was genius. Genius to get people interacting with each other. And I've seen that a lot in games, MMORPGs too, like World of Warcraft, that hooked so many people, including myself. And when people look back at it, they reminisce more about their social ties to each other, really more than they, even care about the game. Like they're like, oh, I wish I could go back to that time. Well, most of the time, people have rose-tinted glasses about, having fun with their friends. That's mostly what it comes back to, which is that if you can create an experience where people have fun with their friends, I think that's basically your game did the perfect job. It doesn't get much better than that.
So true. I think that like almost all of the games that left a lasting impression on me were games that had a social aspect. Like, we just talked about Pokemon. Like, when I started gaming, I played a lot of RuneScape when I was a kid. Like that was like a massive
Hmm.
addiction for me. And it was weird
Yeah.
because everyone in my elementary school was also playing RuneScape. Like I would go home and log in and be in like Lumbridge, and I would see like, my friends from school like running around and chopping trees and shit like that. And that kind of extended more and more and more. What were some other games for you that sort of left a lasting impression on you as a gamer?
For me, the two biggest in my life have probably been Magic the Gathering, the card game. I got into that and really loved that game, and probably WoW. I played a disgusting amount of WoW when it was released, for sure. Got completely hopelessly addicted to that game. Um, and what else has occupied too much of my time? Probably League. There was a stint where everybody I knew and all my friends played League, so part of that social thing, I played League too. I played a lot of shooters, Call of Duty, and all that stuff back in the day too. So yeah, a lot of different stuff, but mostly multiplayer. Mostly multiplayer. Some competitive PvP. I enjoy games like that, but these days I really like games like PoE, and I've gone back to RPGs because they just have this quality where you can walk away from them cleanly and like go deal with your life and not have to be locked into a match that lasts like 45 minutes to an hour or whatever. And that's one of the biggest driving forces for me to get back into, I think, RPGs. I think I got super into MOBAs and like WoW rating and all that stuff, but it's time, making those time commitments, and it eats into your life if you don't have a ton of time to deal with it.
Yeah, dude, I know exactly what you mean. There's also like a less like I feel like less toxic vibe when it comes to like ARPG gaming versus like competitive stuff. Like I played a lot of Dota 2, like where some people went League of Legends, I went Dota 2. And I had so
Mm,
much fun playing that game, and the nuances, the intricacies, the knowledge. I think those types of things, the problem solving directly translate into like my love for like other games like Path of Exile and stuff as well. But it's just the the team based stuff for me. I think I really liked it as a younger gamer. It was super fun. Like the highs were really high, the lows were really low. But I think as I get older now, I don't really I don't really connect with that that sweaty competitive like team based gaming as much. Like, and I don't know if I can play those games casually. Like I'm very much like an all or nothing type of gamer. I don't know about you, but it's
yeah,
hard for me to just
yeah,
like
I
pick
can
up like
relate
a,
to
a
that.
game like Dota and just like, oh, I'll do one turbo round. It's like, oh, I need to like study strats and like watch videos and like
Yeah,
min max and shit. It's
yeah.
kind of crazy. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely am the same way. If I'm gonna try to be good at something, then I'm gonna try pretty hard to be good at something for sure. So yeah, there's a lot of games I really enjoy and play once in a while, but I know that I can't. Like fighting games are a great example of that, where I know, oh, I can't like really um, delve in deeply into these things, because if I get obsessed and I want to be at a really good level, it's going to take me like all year, and I'm gonna have to spend like all of my time on this to get really good at it. So yeah, I get obsessive about improvement, and that's part of it, is that I really enjoy that process too. The process of learning and the process of improvement in a lot of stuff for me is what really gets me hooked. So if there's a lot of room to do that in the game, then there's plenty of room for me to be addicted to it. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think we found like the perfect game for that. Like I don't know, DM said on the same podcast like the end game for all ARPG players is Path of Exile, and I think that's totally like an amazing take, and it kind of blew my mind because I feel like on a long enough timeline, if you play enough ARPGs, you just end up in Path of Exile, and it is the game that has like the deepest learning curve and like the most knowledge to obtain. I feel like. And so yeah, I feel like we're both in it now. Well, I'm in it now. I think you have been in it for much longer than me. But speaking of length
Yeah,
of
well,
time
that.
playing the game, dude, I wanted to ask you. So I was checking out your YouTube channel, and I know you've been playing the game for a while, but your oldest video is like a year old, basically.
Mhm.
How long have you been making like YouTube content for Path of Exile?
Well, I made a couple videos like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago now, when I felt in the mood to make some videos, and I made a couple like build guide videos and stuff like that, and they did pretty well. And like I said, I've liked making stuff for a long time. There's been periods where I was interested in making videos and stuff like that. I've done that for other games too in the past. But yeah, just a year ago, I got re-interested in it. I didn't really have any intent to, but the basically I just played way too much PoE2 when it launched,
Yeah.
and I was at the top of the leaderboard in the top 10 on softcore because I wanted to start in softcore to learn the game. But yeah, I was getting relentlessly DM'd by people. What are you doing? Are you streaming? What are you doing? Are you streaming? And I was like, oh, this is so annoying. So I put on D&D, and I was like, stop messaging me. I'm trying to play the game. And then the next day it hit me. I was like, wait, there's people messaging you asking you if you're streaming. You could probably turn on a stream, and then you would have an audience. And so like I said earlier, maybe this is an opportunity that, is something you should investigate, right? You should turn on your stream. Maybe people do want to be watching you play. So yeah, I did it, and I've been doing it for about a year, a little over a year now, and it's been really fun, pretty much. But yeah, that's kind of how I got back into it again. Was pure happenstance and what appeared to me to be some kind of opportunity and evidence that somebody might give a shit about watching me or whatever. Pretty much.
Oh, dude, that's so cool. I didn't realize that you were a newer like streamer, and by newer I mean like within the last like, year and a bit. And it's funny, I probably like started probably around the same time, like and it was with
Hmm.
like PoE 2, which is super
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
especially
I
when
don't
you
think it's a
have
very uncommon story. There's a lot of people who,
yeah,
have come to the community as of the start of PoE2 for sure and started making
definitely.
stuff.
Especially when you have people like asking what you're doing and what you're streaming. It's kind of like there's clearly people who are like keen to see what you're up to.
I know, man. I mean, I'm so autistic. Sometimes it's way over my head. I'm literally sitting there with people asking me, "Are you streaming? Are you streaming? Would these people want to watch me stream?"
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it adds an extra layer of like mental investment in a game where you're already clearly playing a lot and like you're very invested in doing what you're doing, trying to push your like your goals and stuff like that. And so like I get it. Like some people who are really like proficient at the game don't want to be answering a million questions about what they're doing and like showcasing what they're doing all the time. It's like there's an extra added layer of something to focus on. And so, it works for some people and it works for other it doesn't work for other people.
Yeah, it's true. That's something I've found that I haven't minded as much because I do like teaching, and I find that I like teaching a lot because firstly you get to help somebody, but also selfishly, it's a really good way to learn things. If you have to teach something, then you have to know it. That's the biggest thing. And when you go to explain something to somebody technically, it reveals what you don't know very well because then you're like, well, why can't I explain this technically? Well, it's because I don't know how it works technically. So
That's
they're
such
like,
a good
oh, okay,
point.
well, I should probably learn how this works so I can explain it. And that's it's been good for that. It's definitely been a big learning thing. And honestly, I feel like I've received more help from people in chat than I've given to people in chat. Even as somebody who's quite experienced at the game and played for a long time, there's constantly people coming in and being like, "Hey, what if you did this instead of that?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's a much better idea." Or, or "Hey, you've got the wrong aura on," you know, or whatever,
Been there a few
whatever
times
stuff
this
like
league.
that. Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
been pretty funny to see how much it's actually ended up helping me out. Yeah, so I mean, it's the least I could do. Most of the time, people in my chat are helping my ass out. Least I could do is answer their questions and stuff.
Oh my god, dude. I feel like I want to acknowledge the first thing that you said about teaching. So my friend who I went to school with, he ended up moving to Thailand to pursue martial arts, Muay Thai fighting. And he had this teacher that said that to be the most proficient at something you need to have somebody who is your like teaching you essentially, like somebody who's your mentor. You need to have a mentor. You need to have a rival, so somebody who's about the same skill level as you to push you competitively. And then you need to have a student or somebody that you're like teaching essentially. And I think that when it comes to streaming any game, you inevitably become a lot of those things. Like you have people that you're kind of competing with, like subconsciously. You have people that you like are getting mentored by, and then you have people who are you're teaching, and like who are your students. And sometimes chat is your mentor, as you mentioned. Like I learned so much shit this league from massive amounts of big brain people from my community and from the PoE community as a whole. And so I don't know. It is absolutely like it's just an amazing thing to be able to have that resource. And yeah, I'd probably be such a dog shit player if I didn't have people like being like, Blaze, do this, Blaze, do that. So thanks, guys. I appreciate you.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think it's nice in our community because I think there's not a lot of ego wrapped up in the idea of like not knowing something, and because there is so much to know that I mean everyone just accepts that they don't know everything, which is a great place to be at. I wish that everywhere people did that.
100%,
Because yeah,
man.
it makes people a lot more happy to divulge information and help each other out and stuff like that. Yeah, we don't all know everything. It's a good thing to realize.
For sure. And it's been cool hearing people who are learning along like with you as well. Like some people who are, especially from my community, who are very much so like PoE2 players first, are like coming to PoE1 and being like, oh, it's been cool to hang out in your stream and be like, we're learning alongside you essentially. Which also
Hmm.
helps them like get more into the game too. Which is also like a fun part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that too. I mean, there's a lot of people who are first introduced now through PoE2 that are kind of interested in playing PoE1, or are kind of dipping their toes into it now. Yeah, I mean, it's a great game. It's very complicated to get into, but it's one of those things where you only have to get as far as you want to, and you only have to know as much as you want to. And I remember learning the game by myself without any friends that were playing or like really anything but like online resources. And every league for me was like, oh, I got to Act 4. Oh, I got to Act 6. Oh, I'm in maps now. Now I did red maps. And by the sixth league, I was like, oh, now I'm in over my head. I'm like totally addicted to what I'm doing. I like I'm starting to make plans about what I'm doing every league and stuff like that. So yeah, it just takes time to get into it because it is so much information to dig through. There's just like a lot, right? So there's a lot of history. And then you go to look something up and it's so old that there's multiple times in history when things were true. So now you're having to like figure out which version of the Recombinator am I using? There's been like four. There's been four different sets of rules and four best practices, and there's like this write up from 3 years ago and another write up from 6 months ago. So yeah, it's
Dude,
it's a deep ocean to wade through for sure.
it is. And it's interesting to hear that it was also a acquired taste for yourself as well. I think that that's like a common thing for people. Like for me, this is like the third real league that I've actually like tried to play the game. And the way that I've been
Mhm.
describing it to people is that Path of Exile 1 is like a bottle of wine that's been in the cellar for like 12 or 13 years, like fermenting and becoming amazing. And PoE
Yeah, it's
2
true.
is like this wine that is really good, but it's only been in the cellar for like a year. And I've been used to that flavor, right? And so when I opened up, I
Yeah.
uncorked the bottle that was sitting in the cellar for 12 years. I was like, "Whoa, that's like really fermented stuff." My palate isn't, as expanded as somebody who's been drinking that aged wine for a long time. But every time I tried it, it kind of started growing on me and growing on me. And now now I'm an alcoholic. No, I'm just kidding. And now, yeah. So now I
Yeah,
really
that's
like it.
exactly how it was
Yeah.
for me too, man. Yeah, it took a while for it to stick because I didn't even like know the half of what was going on. I remember looking at somebody's build guide that I was following and seeing like cast when damage taken linked to Immortal Call. And then I was like, what does this mean? And like trying to figure out what in the world that meant. And then when I finally realized, aha, that means that I don't it like automatically happens whenever I take damage, it makes me take less damage. And then I was like, "Oh, you could do stuff like that in this game? Okay, now I'm actually interested. What other weird stuff happens in here?" And there's like everyone has that moment I think where they find something they love and they start to get hooked, and then they're down the rabbit hole you go. Chris Wilson used to say once that they get to maps we own their soul, is what he used to joke about, and I think that's still true to today. If you make it to the end game and you engage with it in any meaningful way, then yeah, you're probably going to come back. You're probably going to come back next league or the league after that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a good, amazing quote from Chris Wilson. It's funny because when I hit maps the first time, it didn't like hook me. And I think it's because I wasn't looking up anything, and it was kind of like my first time really doing it. And one of the major factors for me not clicking with me immediately was how long it took me to get to the campaign. Like the first time I played through PoE 1, I played through the campaign, and it took me like 20 hours to get through it.
Mm,
I think like now after learning how to kind of engage with the campaign, I can get through it in maybe like 7 hours or 6 hours, which is like less than half the time spent. And I think for me, the first time I played through it, I was kind of already like feeling a little bit like burnt out by the game, by the 20-hour like campaign. And so that
yeah.
I think that inevitably helped me actually enjoy the end game more. Was like you kind of just want to, for me anyway, get through the campaign as quick as possible so that the real game sort of begins.
Yeah, I definitely relate to that. But yeah, and it is nice. I mean, after you start to learn the route that you need to take through the campaign and what you have to do and when you have to do it, then it does really get cut down a lot. And a lot of that also has to do with, how strong your character is and how quickly you're killing stuff in the zones too. But yeah, um it's hard to get past. Yeah, when you don't know what's happening, it's way longer than when you do know what's happening, and there's so much more. There's all these zones you really just don't need to do anything in the campaign. They just exist, and like so many like directions you could go in for an hour, killing every monster and achieve nothing as far as the campaign progress goes. So yeah, it's relatable. I could see how going to it is just it's a lot to get through when you're new. It was for me when I was new, that's for sure. Back then, it was a lot shorter when when I was new too.
Yeah. So like when did you start playing ARPGs? Was Path of Exile the first one you ever tried, or were you playing ARPGs for a while before then?
No, I think I played the first ARPGs I probably played were like Warcraft 3 custom mods, probably because I had access to Warcraft 3, but I remember trying to get Diablo at like a garage sale, but my mom was like, Diablo, they're like Catholic and they're like, oh no, the devil, what? No way. So I remember not being able to play Diablo because it had the devil in its name, which was
Classic.
pretty funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
here, have Pokemon instead. All right, well that's fine. I'll get addicted
Yeah.
to that instead. Yeah, so I played I think probably a Warcraft 3 like custom mod or something like that, but then a couple random games like I forget the names of them, but a couple other games in the kind of genre, and I've always liked I like loot, I like progression systems, so it kind of felt natural. But I really started to get into them when Diablo 3 came out. I actually never played Diablo 2 or Diablo 1. So D3 came out, it sucked. I played it, but I still had fun. And then after that came out and it sucked, then I was like, well, I should probably try this Path of Exile game because this Diablo 3 thing stinks.
That is kind
It's
of
pretty much how
the
it went.
general course that happened for a lot of people actually, which is like pretty amazing because GGG's whole like MO was right like making a like successor to Diablo 2, and it kind of came out at the perfect time, right? Where it was like, you know,
They did have
it
good timing, yeah.
but they didn't know necessarily that Diablo 3 wasn't going to hit for a lot of people, and so it was a big, like, risk to be, like, developing a, like, competitor, to Diablo, which was at that point, like, the most anticipated, like, ARPG, like, out there, right? Like, Diablo
Yeah,
3.
big time.
And so, like, releasing that could have been, like, terrible if, like, that game was amazing and everyone was playing Diablo 3. And, Diablo 3 was very successful for many reasons, but a lot of the people who, like, really loved Diablo 2, myself included, played Diablo 3, enjoyed it, and didn't love it. I went and played other types of games, and a lot of people went and played Path of Exile like yourself. What about Path of Exile for you, like, when you first got your hands on it, like, hit the hardest or, like, impacted you the most?
I think the Hmm, really just how customizable it was really is the biggest thing that struck me immediately because I love being creative. I love making stuff. So realizing that the game is just so heavily customizable down to every bit and knob on your passive tree, all your gear, all this stuff is just so up to you and so unique in how dramatic of a different experience you can have based on those decisions as well. Because it's one thing to, make a game where you can make a lot of decisions, but at the end of the day, you're all attacking with the same, attack or whatever. But I mean, skills. I immediately noticed like skills. Well, not immediately, but the things that really stuck out to me were skills that were like dramatically changing based on decisions, and these builds were only capable of doing the interaction they could do based on their support gems and stuff like that. And that kind of customizability is what really just hooked me immediately. And that kind of triggered that thought, like, oh, what else is out there? What else is possible in this game? If you could do something crazy like this, then what other stuff could you do? And then just being curious and wanting to learn more and play more and learn more. Pretty much, that's what really hooked me. Was just that moment of being like, this is a pretty crazy customizable game.
Yeah, it is. There's like, I guess it is like the most sandboxy ARPG that you can play, where it's just like, up to this point for me anyway. Every ARPG was very much locked behind like the class that you pick, right? Like, so you're playing Diablo
Right.
2, you pick a barbarian. You're a barbarian. You're not using a magic wand. You're not using a crossbow. You're using like an axe or a sword. But with PoE, it's very much like, that adds flavor to your build, but that's not restricting your builds. Like you can, be a juggernaut, but if you wanted to build some crazy trap build, you could probably figure out a way to do that with endurance charges and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Like I don't
And
know.
that's
Like it's
exactly the thing that excited
yeah.
me. That's the stuff I was like, "Well, I can be a wizard juggernaut or whatever. This is insane. What else can I do?
It's amazing. Yeah. And I understand like the choice behind it. It's kind of like this basically playground where they just present the tools to you. There's a lot of them. I think for a lot of people, they're like, "Whoa, that's a lot of tools." Like, give me one step at a time,
Yep.
guys. But
Yep.
it is
Yep.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the
So
thing where it just there's so much to pull from that, yeah, you're hopeless when you're new, and you don't know how even worse than that, you don't know, like, how jargon translates to math because that's what every item really is. It's like a part of an algebra equation, except it's
yes,
steeped in, like, jargon. What does more what does increased mean? What does, less? What is what do these specific words mean math wise? And yeah, you're hopeless. Just follow a build guide. That's what I always tell people. That's what I did when I was new. You just follow a build guide, and so everything's fine. And then you can reverse engineer it, right? You kind of learn more, a lot easier when you just reverse engineer why something works than like trying to put together something that does work.
I totally agree. I think that like for me, my first experience was without a build guide because I wanted to like experience the game without like something telling me how to experience it, which is how I generally
Right.
like to play games at the first like in my first like playthrough, right? Like um that being said, I feel like Path of Exile is one of the few exceptions where it's like if I had to go back and like talk to myself, I'd be like, Blaze, just follow a fucking build guide, man. Like because there's so many other things to process in the game. Having one less thing to worry about your build, um, it just makes it easier to understand and enjoy. And I get it. Like for anybody who's out there, you're playing and you're making your own homebrew build, like that's amazing. And I fucking respect the shit out of that. Um, but there is up to a certain point, I think with Buildcraft and PoE, a baseline level of knowledge that you need to understand. I mean, of course, you can kind of just plug away at things and pass a tree. Especially if you've played PoE too, you can probably make something like that's definitely serviceable. But to like the upper echelon of builds, it's like, oh my god, the amount of interactions that are happening to like make these things actually work is it's incredible. It's really really cool.
I think you can make it work on PoE 2 if you don't want to follow a build guide, but PoE 1, you're not going to have a fun time. Like it's just the gulf between a bad skill and a good skill in PoE 1 is wide. And from my experience, people like when they destroy the monsters, not when the monsters destroy them. So you don't want to have that experience playing the ARPG where you just can't even kill a monster or whatever. You're struggling to do everything. You don't want it that bad.
For sure. And I felt like I think PoE 2 maybe made me feel like I was better at Buildcraft than I thought I was. Like and that's largely due that's largely due to like the amount of tools that we have available to us and like how I guess PoE 2 tailors builds to work in like easier ways maybe. But yeah, like ever like since 0.1, like I started out every league making my own like homebrewed build and then I would follow something else later on. And now in PoE 2, I usually just make my own builds, like, don't really follow build guides anymore. Um,
Yeah.
but the way that like builds work in PoE 2, there's a lot less going on in regards to like, especially as we mentioned before, defenses, and then like skill, like synergies and mechanics and whatnot. And then you go over to PoE 1, and I was like, I'll just like do the same thing I did in PoE 2 and PoE 1. It's like, oh shit, no, I actually can't do that. Like there's just way more crazy shit. Um, Speaking about crazy shit, was there anything notable during your, like, time in PoE 1 that, like, stuck out to you as being, like, a favorite mechanic or a league or anything? Like, you know, how's Mirage also scaling up to that?
You know, oh man, that's tough. I honestly feel like I've had a lot of fun with every league, but maybe that's just because I'm addicted to the game. but but thinking about which ones that I really enjoyed the most, I really liked this league a lot. I would rank it pretty highly. Um, I actually did like Mercenaries the first couple months of it, at least. That was, or actually all the Mercenaries. I mean King's March. The first couple months of King's March I liked. It's a little bit long. Um, Going way back, I remember Breach being really a great addition. Just like them realizing, oh, we could just like put a mechanic in maps that adds like more monsters to the map, and you just kill more monsters. That was a good step forward for leagues at that time because leagues were a lot more vanilla than they are today back then. Um, yeah, there's been a lot of good ones, but a lot of the times it's like I look back, I think more about the characters and the builds that were possible during that league more than I think of like the league mechanic a lot of the times. So there's been a lot of really fun builds. I look back and think, oh man, those were the good days. That build's not even doable anymore. They removed the item or whatever, nerfed it so severely. But there's a lot of good builds over the decade or so.
And that's the fun part about it, right? Is that every time you come back, there is something new. There's a new build, there's new skill. Like even, however many years, what is it, like 12, 13 years later, like, they're still adding new skills. Like you just played with like a new skill this like league launch and stuff. So it's pretty cool to
Yeah,
be able to do
it
that.
always feels new because, like you said, it's like they give you all the pieces, and whenever they add even like 30 new pieces, well, that means that there's new combinations with all the billion pieces that are already in the game. So
Yeah.
things are refreshed by it a lot. And like lastly, before this one, when they introduced all the Foulborn uniques, they really threw in a whole ton of new pieces into the game with those. Lots of new interactions and builds, and yeah, I'm really happy about PoE1. I think it's in such a great state currently, and this patch was a huge step forward for it for sure.
Yeah, man, it makes me happy because I think that PoE1 needed like a really big W. I don't necessarily think that like
Yeah,
mercenaries or keepers of the flame were bad, but I felt like um it's PoE1 players really still wanted something that was like really substantial. And I think that Mirage kind of felt like that was the like, the big W that that game needed. And no, I'm stoked on it because it also just makes it like, better for people like myself who want to try and get into PoE1 more. I feel like right now is like the perfect time. Like if you guys are thinking about trying out the game and haven't played it yet, like this league is like a great time to hop in. Like even with all the stuff to learn, like it's really good. Um,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You just jump in and follow a build guide, and you'll have a fun time, probably.
At least take the first sip of your really old aged wine. Get the process started,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
um,
exactly.
so on the other hand, we have a wine that's about like a year and a bit old. How did your like first, like impression with like PoE2 go? I know a lot of people who played PoE1 quite a bit beforehand were pretty apprehensive about the game. Was that sort of your perspective, or were you just generally like, excited to try it out?
No, just excited. I mean, for me, like I said, I just like new games, right? So like new rules and new systems. It doesn't have to be the same as PoE1 for me to be happy with it, you know? And I think there was a lot of friction because of that. It was dramatically different than PoE1 when it launched in point one. And I feel they've taken a lot of steps to push it further towards PoE1 to accommodate for that kind of backlash with their, diehard community. I don't think it matters at all to the new adopters of the game. They don't care at all. They just like the game. Um, but yeah, no, I was really happy with it. I was having a ton of fun. It also helps that the thing that I chose to do was, good enough to play the game and and kill stuff, right? So if I had picked something that sucked, then I probably would have had a worse experience. That's for sure. So I got lucky on that with my first character. But yeah, like I said, like we talked about earlier, me playing in Ruthless and being used to a really drop scarce mode already, it didn't offend me that much to be playing the game and not be like getting like any rare items. Well, okay, that I guess that just means none of us are getting rare items. That's fine by me in a trade economy or whatever. And not being able to craft like perfect rares. Well, I played PoE at a time where that was true. Back when I started playing PoE, it was really uncommon for you to even get a 6 link in your build. Like most build guides stopped at 5 links because being able to get a 6 link meant getting like 1,500 orbs of fusing, which would probably take you like all year of farming back then because there was like 3 monsters in the map and they didn't drop anything, because so that loot table has been changed so dramatically from then. And I think they wanted to reset that clock because, in order to keep people engaged, you have to always give them more. They're not going to be happy with less. And if they don't get more, they're not going to feel like it's exciting. So they want to dial it back to the point where, they could drip feed us more over time, get people excited with each patch. But they just took it too far back. People's current memory I feel is more tied to PoE1, so it's like they have to go closer to that, for people to generally be happy. But I didn't mind it, but I could see what happened there, with like them having to change it. Like you were saying earlier, we got nothing, and now we get tons of stuff, and you just leave tons of stuff on the ground, basically.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a shame because as much as I am not opposed to like the pivoting of the game, like the game was very much pitched as something that's quite different from where it is today, and that's fine. Like I understand why, but I was of the same opinion as you, where like when I was playing in like 0.1 and I was like getting my ass handed to me by GNR for like 2 hours, I was like, yo, this is fucking like this is fun, man. Like this is hard. It just kind of hit different, and I think that that still is achievable. Like if especially if you play like on SSF or hardcore, like there is that difficulty available to you to have that experience. But I don't necessarily think that that experience is like the intended one for every player. Like especially as you mentioned, like the new players who like maybe never played PoE1 or PoE1 Ruthless, like
Right,
throwing
right.
them into a game that was sort of developed as a way to be more digestible for new players, yet it was like harder in like every sense of the word, like slower, progression was slower. There was more mechanics with regards to controlling your character. Like it seemed a bit counterproductive to like what they were trying to do with PoE2 is to just like be like, yo, like you missed out on PoE1 over the last 10 plus years. Like here's a fresh slate, like come play, come understand. We've done a bunch more like changes that make it easier for new players. And so yeah, I think what I'm trying to say without being too much on a rant is like I miss how it felt, but I definitely see why they made those changes the way they did.
Yeah, yeah, totally. It makes sense. And at the end of the day, there's like one rule to game design. If it's not fun, then it has to go. And if people are overwhelmingly, stating that they're not having fun with something, well, you have to listen. I mean, there's really no question about it. Like you have to. If a lot of people are saying it's not fun, then you need to change something as a game designer. I like game design as a hobby, and the people I've listened to who've spoken very wisely about the games that they designed really put an emphasis on that fact that the games are supposed to be fun. That's the point of the game. So if you have anything in the game that is impeding the fun, it's got to go ASAP, pretty much. And you got to do something about it. So yeah, I think they've been doing a good job at that. And people, I like I said, and like you've said, we both enjoyed the game in all of its states so far. But I can tell you from my personal experience with my friends that rejected the game in its early states, a lot of them have come around to it and are much more interested in it now, especially after the changes with perfect grader currency and stuff like that to make the route to actually crafting good items, doable and kind of predictable. That's what people really, a lot of people really enjoy that part of PoE1, feeling like you know what you can make for your character and planning it out and then executing that kind of plan.
Yeah, I had some friends who were the same. They rejected the game. I remember I had one buddy who was so excited. We played through Act One together, and then I ended up leaving him and playing on my own and surpassing him. And so he ended up getting to Geonor, and he had the same experience I did. Got his ass handed to him a bunch of times, I think for multiple hours, and he just quit the game. Like he was just like, "This isn't like PoE1. Like I love PoE1. I love how I can just like die at a boss." Come back in and the boss hasn't regained its health and I can just chip away at it.
Yeah, that was a big change. Yeah, that was a big
And so
change they decided to do
he
there.
was like, "What the
True.
fuck is this shit? I have to like fight him and beat him in one go." And like I
Yeah.
had very little experience with PoE1, so I was like, "Oh, this is I have to really dial in." Like, you get to phase 2 and you got to dodge all the wolves and the smoke and he's saying the poems and shit. I was like, "This is fucking badass." And he was like, "Fuck this shit. I'm out. I'm going back to PoE1 where I don't have to, brute force a boss in one go." And I really am happy that they didn't change that particular aspect of the game because I want the games to still feel different for different reasons. Like I like how you have to kind of when you're going into a boss fight, like, be ready for it. And yeah, I think that, it works well within PoE2. And I like how in PoE1 you can kind of just send it over and over again if you want to. I guess not in hardcore. If you're playing it in hardcore, you kind of still have to lock in.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like, yeah, just not everybody likes to play that version of the game, you're not gonna make everybody happy. They have to have their um things they believe in that they're gonna retain despite people disliking it. And one of those things that they have retained is that the boss's health resets and the fight resets. And yeah, that's one of those things in PoE1 where it's like, yeah, you get the boss 75% health, you die in softcore, all right, just come back in, it's at 75 again. Or in the campaign, there's like zero punishment. I mean, there's no portals, so you just keep coming back and over again. So that's a pretty polarizing one to change for sure, to
it
have people not
is.
be able to just force it and win the game. But I what I would hope is that for people who do stick around, it helps push them towards preparation, right? Because fights in general don't demand that you struggle so much if you're prepared. Genor is not so hard if you have some armor and cold resist, right? That's going to make the fight a lot more palatable, and you're going to be able to tank like every ability and also your life flask is up to date. That's an amazingly important one in PoE2. Like just missing like one tier of life flasks is such a huge difference in that game. So like, yeah, I mean, you just want to be prepared, and that's the thing is you can't just run through the campaign without doing anything to your character and succeed in PoE2. It's going to be a brutal struggle if you do that. So you got to put gear on your character and get a new life flask and stuff like that. You got to do something pretty much.
Were there any points in the game that you like really struggled with, like in like 0.1? Like, was there anything that stuck out to you as being like, this is fucking brutal, bro? Like, what's going on here?
Most brutal thing was the rollbacks. That was the most brutal things about point one, was like, because doing breach and mapping, I think I rolled back at least like 20 maps a day, and that was tough. But other than just the general issues of the game, I think that I had it easy because minions were like broken in point one. All you had to do was like put a couple minion levels on them, and they just like killed everything. And I was like, la di da di da. Every boss fight's easy. This game's
Yeah.
easy. I don't know what you guys are complaining about. Oh, you've been dying to this campaign boss. I killed that boss in like 3 seconds. And then I look at other people's DPS. They have like a 50th of the minions DPS or whatever. So I had a really colored experience playing the broken thing by accident, basically. But I think that overall, it was a pretty relaxed kind of launch. The thing that surprised me the most was just how scarce things were. Like I didn't really feel like I was too stressed out about like getting through mechanics or whatever. I think the hardest thing for me in the campaign was probably Viper, was probably the hardest thing, because I didn't know how that was going to go down. Not knowing about like poison in advance and stuff like that. I remember that being pretty rough. But other than that, it was pretty chill. Yeah, they just not getting much stuff was surprising. I was surprised at the level of loot that was coming out of the game, but I was like, all right, I'm into this. I didn't know you guys would do this to us. I remember there was some before it launched, there was like some event in California where a lot of people got to go and play, and that had kind of like colored my perception of how the game was going to be. And they were talking about how it was just brutally difficult. They were thinking like people weren't even going to be able to beat like Act 2. So I felt like I was already ready for that kind of game from hearing about that. So I was less surprised by it, but I think some people really got blindsided by the difficulty level of the game in the end, even though it was easier than they were kind of claiming, I think, in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's the tricky thing about builds as well, is that sometimes you can just luck out and choose something
Oh
that's just
yeah.
really
Yeah.
strong, and it
Especially in the new game,
completely
it's all luck.
yeah, it completely changes the perspective of your experience, right? Like, where
Yep.
I am playing warrior and like like experiencing like the
Struggling.
pain of Olympics, essentially. Like I remember getting
Yeah.
to the trial of the Sekimas, and I had to rebuild my character because I couldn't make it through without losing all my honor, because up to that point I had like designed this guy to be able to withstand damage. I had a shield and blocking and a lot of armor and stuff like that. But I had not designed this character to just avoid taking damage in total. And so I remember
Right.
getting to the final guy, the rock boss, and just dying or losing all my honor. And so I had to put on Molten Blast and like kill him from range essentially, which was a cool problem solving moment. I will give it that. But there were a lot of moments like that where it was just like I felt like I was playing the game on hard mode. And then I played Warrior in 0.2
Yeah.
and I went Smith of Katava. And this was, after I had learned, more about the game. I was a better player. We all were in 0.2. And I had such a great time. This is when, like, Rolling Slam and Bone Shatter was pretty well established as being a really good campaign build. And, Perfect Strike was still in a pretty good spot. And I remember just breezing through the campaign in 0.2 when everyone else was like getting run down by like white mobs. And I saw all these clips of people just like freaking out. And I was like, I'm just like bone shattering everything. Everything's dying. And so, yeah, it's
Yeah,
interesting
that's
how
the
like,
power
especially
of
in
playing
early
a good
access.
build.
Yeah, it's like in early access, it kind of feels like we're very much so like guinea pigs out here trying to, you know, get through this game. And it can be, experiences can be varied depending on what you play for sure.
Yeah, we're the testers that pay them to test. It's like we're the best testers ever.
We are. So how have minions felt as somebody? I'm assuming that you play minions basically every league. I maybe I'm off on this, but how have minions felt like since 0.1 up to like 0.4?
Yeah, you're right. I really like pet classes. I like pets and having pets. I feel like maybe it goes all the way back to Pokemon for me, and that idea of having
True.
like a battle pet or whatever, So it's kind of always been something I've kind of leaned towards. They felt really good, in PoE 2 and in PoE 1. I think they're in a great state. There's always going to be weird stuff with them because they have their own AI and wonkiness that is related to that always. But I kind of love that part of them. I like that they have weird AI, and I like that there's ways you can influence their AI and stuff like that. Like in particular in PoE 2, it's kind of ridiculously intensive to ask somebody to do it, but there is a button that directs your minions on what to do that you can press, and it like tells them to walk, and if you hover over a target, it tells them to, attack or cast at the target. And you can use that to micro your minions and move them around. And in like terms of like Dota, you can orb walk with your minions with that button. Like you can have them orb walking around the screen. And I love that part of games. I love the idea of having disjointed characters that you also control and adding another layer of minutia and stuff like that. So I love them in both games. I think they're in a great state. And yeah, I'll probably always play them. I just like pets and summons and stuff like that. It's fun to me.
I've recently just experienced minions for the first time. I've never been somebody who's enjoyed it. Even back in the Diablo 2 days, I never liked playing Necromancer. And it's funny, I watched your video, your oldest video about when you hit level 100 as a witch, and you had Temporalis on with like, I don't even know how many Skeletal Archers. It was like 30 Skeletal Archers or something like that.
It's like 30 or 40 or something. Yeah, it's
and
ridiculous
it
in that
reminded me
patch.
exactly of a Diablo 2 build. So I don't know how much you know about Diablo 2, so forgive me for explaining this, but there's an item called Enigma, which is essentially like the modern or the previous like Temporalis, essentially. And what necromancers would do is they would use Enigma to like telly around, and then when you teleported, all of your minions would spawn immediately at your feet, and they would just kill everything,
blow everything.
And when I
up,
saw your
right?
build, I was like, this guy literally recreated like a Enigma necromancer from Diablo 2
Yep.
and Path of Exile, and
That's
it was like
exactly
really
how
good.
it turned out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is how it turned out. It was funny though, because like I had too many that it would lag the whole server. Like I'd teleport around, and then every time I teleported, like you said, it would respawn them all on top of me at once. But when the game respawned like 40 of them at once, it didn't like what it was doing, and it would like freeze for like a second and a half, like every time. It was sweet, but other than that, that's what happens, right? Sometimes you get too many skeletons and things start breaking. But so that was kind of my fault at the end of the day.
It was a pretty cool build though. It hit me in the nostalgia feels, man. I was like, that is so crazy. Was there any other like minion builds that you've played over the last like year and a bit that have really stuck out to you as being like super strong? Like, maybe some Spectre build or what have you got? What have you cooked up?
Well, right now in PoE2, I would say that Infernal Legion has been crazy. The skill that does ignite damage based on the minion's health in a couple ways. It's been like a good vehicle to make your minions explode, which you can get minions to have a lot of health, and that hit damage from the explodes does really well in PoE2. And Spectres are also really good, but it's kind of one of those like Ferrari budget builds where if you have all the money in the world, then they just destroy everything with impunity. And it's kind of strange because basically there's only one thing you need for minion builds, especially in it's kind of the same for both, but especially in PvE2. If you increase their level, they get more health and more damage. And it's the damage is the big one because after they get to a certain level of damage, then they just one shot everything. And the more they one shot everything, the less opportunity they have to get hit, which means the less they die. And so there's kind of this like tipping point you get to where they go from struggling to kill and being killed to just one-shotting everything and obliterating everything while you walk around. So they're really good late, I think. In both games is kind of the truth. They're very, very, very good late with really good gear, and then kind of weak in the start in general. But that's kind of how it should be, right? You should start out weak and then get really good over time. So they're probably in the right spot overall, I think.
I
And
got you.
as far as like specific stuff for PoE 2, I think those Wasp Spectres are the coolest ones right now.
Yeah, I started out with my first minion ever journey. Actually, because I died on one of my characters, and I told my community, I promise you guys, I would play minions if I died on this character. I was planning on not dying on the character for a long time, and then I died off stream. And so
Yeah.
I played Val guards with the grenades, like they throw
Oh
like the
yeah,
explosive
yeah.
grenades, and it felt really really strong even in Act 3. And I think like another thing that really stuck out to me, and this is something that happened in 0.2, I didn't know about like the concept of what a specter was. And so when it came into the game in 0.2, it blew my fucking mind. I was like, there's no way that you can harness the power of all of these monsters.
I know,
And another
right?
thing that really stuck out to me in PoE2 was that a lot of the monsters had really interesting designs. Like they felt kind of akin to Diablo 2 in some cases where like you'd actually have to watch out. You know, you see the eternal knights in the mausoleums and you're like, that guy is gonna fucking kill me if I actually shoot arrows at him right
Yeah.
now. And so there was a lot of those examples. And then so on top of that, it was really cool that you could also, if you wanted to, like harness those abilities for your own like builds and stuff like that. And that was just like, holy shit, man, like this is crazy. I don't know if the specters were good in 0.2. I remember hearing a lot of like negative feedback regarding them. Maybe they had some like ironing out to do, but it was cool to just, like, try out the Val guards in 0.4 and be like, okay, I might be approaching minion Andy status now. These guys fucking slap like in Act 3, you know?
Minions have had their struggles in a couple patches in PoE2, but they're in a good spot now. Spectres, this is kind of always the case, especially with Spectres in PoE1. You can Spectre anything, so yeah, 95% of them suck. That's kind of how it goes. And then there's like a couple that rise to the top of efficacy, and you can always try and make a meme build with the weird things. I remember one guy made a build back in PoE1 with just like worms, with just like specter worms that did like nothing, and he tried to do something, and that's the beauty of the game, is that sometimes you could try and make some weird things work and sometimes they end up being good. But yeah, they're good. I like the specters in PoE too. And the cool thing about specters, whenever more monsters get added to the game, there's potentially new specters. And that means like every time they add an act to the game or a new zone or whatever, you can get pretty cool stuff as a minion Andy like myself. So it's always something to
Yeah.
look forward to.
Oh, dude, I can't wait. I think that like by them adding more acts, like I really hope that we get at least another act like in the next couple updates, maybe not in 0.5, but 0.6. Like it just adds so much more content to the game. As you said, more monsters, more specters, if you're playing minions, more map layouts too, more bosses. Like the end
Yeah,
game
yeah,
just gets
exactly.
content as
More tile
well,
stuff.
right?
Yep,
So yeah,
yep.
like my take has always kind of been like the faster that we can get that sort of stuff, the better the game's going to feel because it just populates the game with so many more things. Like speaking of things that got populated, so this league we got the Druid, we got Talisman, we got the Temple mechanic. How did you enjoy the Fate of the Val League compared to the other leagues in PoE two?
I really liked it. I thought it was really good. You know, it's been very polarizing. We all know that. Yeah. Everybody who's been in the community knows that it's been kind of taken a certain couple ways. People really like it because it drops mirrors. People really like it for other reasons as well. The reason why I like it the most is because it presented the temple I'm speaking about in particular. The reason I like the temple as much as I did is because it presented something that you had to do over a long period of time. Like you have to build it, you know, and that's over the course of multiple maps, probably multiple days and stuff like that. And I didn't really realize it until I was doing that, but it made me realize, oh, this is what's missing in this game right now. This kind of like 2 week long goal that I need to accomplish that I can be excited to get into the game and work towards, you know. And that's what the end game I felt was really missing in PoE 2. So having that, I really enjoyed it for that. You know, I could have it drop like 40 times less loot and be happy with it probably, or something like that, or whatever the ceiling is of it right now. But I like that it's something that asks you to plan over a long period of time, and then you know you can be rewarded for it and have it set up and stuff like that. I think it's cool. How did you receive the Fate of the Vol League yourself?
Oh man. I think the temple for me was something that I initially was super excited about when I played in the campaign. I loved like, I like how, starting from, I think it was zero point 0.3, they introduced these like guaranteed rewards. So in zero point 0.3, you had the abyssal fissures that gave you like
Oh
currency
yeah,
or,
right, right.
like a lesser jeweler's orb in some cases. And it felt like the temple was that, but even better. Like I remember on my league starter character, I got a 4 link in like the first temple that I did. I was just
Yeah,
like, that is fucking insane. Like if you can get a 4 link in Act 1, like that is amazing. And I also had like a
yeah,
20% quality crossbow in like Act 1 with like 6 mods like on SSF. Like that's unheard of, right? And so really
yeah. They
enjoyed
were really good
that.
the first couple of zones. Really good.
Yeah. Yeah, all the guaranteed, I guess not guaranteed. It felt like though in the earlier campaign acts, the chances of the crafting currency like benches spawning were really high. So every time you went in there, you came out with like better items and stuff like that. But then when I got to the end
Yeah,
game, and this was something that I experienced, and I think many other people did, it just felt like the rewards didn't scale. And it was
yeah,
interesting because this is just due to us not realizing how the inner workings of the temple were and how, oh, the
yep,
rewards scale if you build it a certain way. But we were just oblivious to that, right? And so I essentially
exactly.
ignored it after a while and I just continued doing what I was doing. I think I would just farmed abyss a lot. Because I was using, the currency to craft my gear and whatnot. And so I just kind of played it like I did in zero point 0.3. I did abyss, I did expedition for recom. And as I was doing that, the temple got figured out. It was like a week later. The temple, I think it got like a buff. Like the temple got a buff because people were like, "This
It
thing
did.
sucks,"
Yeah,
and then it got buffed. Um, and so when it got buffed and people started doing the Holton crystal farming and really min maxing it, I became interested in it again. And so I ended up trying to build it. And while I was doing this, I was also pushing XP. I was trying to hit level 100, and then they did that one change where they prohibited rooms from being locked unless they were tier 3. And at this
yeah.
juncture, I wasn't able to like complete my temple, and so it felt like um I was unable to achieve what I wanted to with the temple. And so I just stopped doing it again. I was like, fuck this, I'm done. I'm just gonna hit 100 the old fashioned way. And then I died, but they reverted the change, and so it was cool. And then after that, I swore to myself, Blaze, stop being such a stubborn bastard. Like, get in the temple and start working on it again. And then I really enjoyed it, and then I felt the exact same way that you did, where I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, this is giving me like an alternative out of map goal to work on, and I really
I had the
liked it.
same experience too before that point, by the way. I mean, yeah, in my synopsis of the league, I skipped right to the end, you know. But yeah, I had the same experience. I interacted with it. I thought it was trash in the end game. I stopped interacting with it. Then it got buffed. Everyone was talking about it. It's really good. And then I was like, okay, well, I'll try it out again. And I messed around with it a little bit. And then, yeah, pretty much the same story. I think a lot of people were like that, you know, until they buffed it, and then it became quite public how insanely profitable and lucrative, how it was giving you everything, experience, loot, everything, then caught my attention. But I didn't really get to try it like from scratch until in Timmy's private league, and I went as far as to like sit in Keymaw before maps for like 8 hours building it as well. And after doing that, it was just clear how, I mean, if it stays like how it is in the next patch, how absurdly like broke. Well, I guess you can't farm in the campaign like you could, so maybe it's not so bad. But setting it up that early is just absurd. I mean, I got into maps and then immediately I was showered with as much crafting currency and bases as I needed, and then immediately I could make perfect gear and go straight to farming the juice temple. And yeah, the progression shrinks real tiny. Like the ramp is very small with the temple in the game currently, so I mean that's there's no mystery, it's going to be nerfed dramatically, right? How much is hard to say, but it will be nerfed dramatically, and it won't be so easy to build because assumedly it won't be guaranteed until you get to maps and you have like a waystone for it or something, right? Probably something
I
like
hope
that.
so. There's a lot of questions because, as you know, like
Yeah.
every league mechanic that has been core in PoE2 is found in the campaign at some point. And so,
Mm.
Abyss is now core, but the first time you encounter it is still the same place. It's like, or not the same place, sorry. It's like the bone pits or whatever it is in Act 2, right? And so I'm hoping that wherever we find the Val temple mechanic, they've hopefully put in place some way to not like just stay there for
I
like
think
8 hours.
I think they've thought of that at this point.
Yeah.
Lord help us if they haven't, but yeah, I don't want
Yeah.
to sit in the jungle farming the temple location to set up my temple for 8 hours at level 30 or whatever. That's for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's
And
let's
people
let's
will
make
if
sure
you
that
can.
doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Oh
If
yeah,
you
I mean
can, they
that's the
will.
thing is after I did it that one time, yeah, I mean if it's allowed again, then and it was like the same as it was, which won't be, it'll be nerfed, right? But yeah, this definitely was worth my time. 8 hours in the campaign setting it up was worth probably like 40 hours of mapping at least in progress. So it was pretty nuts to do that.
It's funny that you mentioned this because like before I knew like what you were up to, I remember, we were playing in Timmy's League together, and I was like, "What the fuck is this guy doing? Like, how? Like, I'm blasting Timmy's League, but I didn't do the temple because I was a stubborn bastard and didn't learn how to do it properly or like farm it in the campaign and stuff." And so you were just like
Mm.
leagues ahead, and in terms of like XP and whatnot. And then I tuned into your stream because I saw you were like, I think like rank 1 for the first like week or so or more. And I remember you talking about like how you spent time doing it, which exponentially gave you such a benefit down the road because you had already, created this like amazing temple for XP and loot and stuff. Um, how was your experience with Timmy's League as a follow-up? Like, was this the first time you played in the league? Let me know, like how was it?
It was. Yeah, it was the first time I played and it was really fun. I really like group self-found private leagues kind of like that. I didn't really realize it, but I think a lot of people were considering it to be like an SSF league. Like a ton of people were participating in it and not trading in it as well. I thought it was like more of like a group SF where you like traded stuff or help people out or whatever. But it was really fun. I mean, I just think it's really cool. And those kind of small private leagues, it's so much easier to be interested and engaged with progression when there's other people around you that are also interested in it, and that's like the exciting thing about League Start is that there's this whole field of people that are also just like itching to get on and play. It's not just you alone in this economy or whatever in this game. Even if you're an SSF, there's other people who are doing it. It's just so much easier, I feel, to be infected with excitement when there's other people who are also like that. And that's why I love events like that, because yeah, it's like everybody's starting fresh together and having fun. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I also played that broken oil grenade build too. So I just like went
Yeah.
super ham on. I was like, I'm gonna play the dumbest build and do the dumbest strat and see what happens. And it was fun for just trying out that and seeing what that kind of progression would have felt like if I had done it all over again. A lot of people played that Talkative Tribe private league as well in a similar vein on softcore. I mean, they did that whole fresh restart for the economy.
Yeah, Second Wind. I think it was the biggest private league
Yeah.
ever made. And that I think was a direct like kind of the success of that league was directly a result of the like temple kind of like being a bit fucked up at the beginning. I think a lot of people wanted a chance to like have a fresh start and stuff, but I never played in
Yeah, I
that one.
understand that it didn't really change much there. I mean, it's
Yeah,
even
I
worse
think.
since you're dealing with the hyper users and all of them know how to set up a temple now. But yeah, it was a nice notion. And at the end of the day, just even if people have all the information, fresh economies are fun. They're just
For
fun, even if they
sure.
only last for a week or whatever. Even if
Yeah,
they're
I think
short.
history repeated itself quite quickly in the second
Yeah.
Win League. But with
Yeah.
regards to Timmy's, I mean, I've been playing in that one since 0.2, and it always has had this sort of like intimate community behind it. And it's grown like over the last couples like leagues. Like I think like 0.3 we had like maybe just shy of 400 people, and then in this league there was about 1,000, maybe 1,100. And despite it being like almost triple the size, it still very much so felt like it has that like intimate community behind it. Like, I think you get that inherently by playing hardcore because not many people play it. And so when you play hardcore, you start to learn like who all the gamers are, like who are all the big hardcore gamers.
Yeah,
And
it's a small community.
it's
That's the
cool.
coolest thing about it, is that
Yeah.
it's small enough to actually have a community. Whereas like yeah, just softcore trade, there's a lot of people playing that game mode, so it's difficult to bump into the same people over and over again. But in hardcore communities, it's smaller, so yeah, people get to know each other. It's fun that way. That was a big thing that really got me hooked to it too. When I went to Ruthless, is that the community was small, and I realized, oh, you can actually like make friends in this game if the community is small enough. It's kind of fun to
Yeah.
to actually talk with the people you trade with and stuff like that. So yeah, that's
100%.
definitely a big thing for me.
Yeah, no, it's great. And yeah, I really enjoyed trading this league in Timmy's league. So the last couple times I played it as SSF and just did like a fresh SSF restart. I approached it from a lot less of like a purist standpoint and was like, we're gonna do like guild self found with my guild. And it was a blast, dude. Like it was so much fun. Like it made me like appreciate like trading and that those interactions, helping people out. Like there were some people that were like, and this is the beautiful thing about Timmy's League specifically, is that a lot of people who don't play hardcore like use Timmy's League to try it out for the first time. And so I would just give people like, 20 tier 5 support gems and like when they're in the clear fell encampment, they would just be like, oh my God, like thank you. Like, have some greater jeweler's orbs and shit. And like it was cool to be able to do that and like reconnect with that like aspect of the game, because as an SSF player, you just forget like how fun it is to just like hook people up or trade with people. And it felt very much so not like the min-maxy trade that I'm doing or like experiencing in Mirage by playing softcore trade. It was very much like akin to like old school WoW trading where you just be like, I have this. Does anyone else need this? And they'd be like, I have something else. Like here, you can trade me for that. And we're not worried about like, oh, was that like an effect, like an optimal trade for my divine to exalt ratio? Like, no, it was just like we were just trading because
Yeah.
we both had something that we needed,
Yeah, that's the best part of group self-found. I really like playing those leagues where the attitude is, do I have something that I need for my build? No. Does anyone else need it? Yes. Okay, well, it's theirs. That's it, That's the whole attitude, is like, well, if I don't need it, then maybe someone else does, and if they need it, it's theirs. Instead of worrying about like, well, I need to get this amount of money for it, and that means that then I have to save this amount of money to get the thing I want. I mean, both those systems equate to the same thing in the end. But if everyone is willing to cooperate and just give their items over, when they don't need them, then it's basically the same thing. People are trading their items without the need of trading currency for them and translating that currency to items, right? So yeah, it's like the feels good trade is what Group
Yes.
Self found is like feels good trade, and yeah, it's cool because then people, the wider it gets, people can specify into like, oh, I'm gonna be the person who's farming, in PV2 like at the Abyss or whatever. I'm gonna be getting the omens for everybody. Oh, I'll go do this and get that kind of mechanic done, or do that boss for everybody, get those jewels for everybody, and that could be really fun to do within those parameters. There's a lot of like kind of competitive based team based leagues that happen in PoE1 as is, that are pretty cool, where people are trying to achieve goals as a team and like accumulate a certain amount of uniques or delve depth or whatever as a team. So yeah, it's cool. I like those versions of the game a lot, where people cooperate more and get to have fun on that level and not bicker about, one or two exalts here or there or whatever.
For sure. And it's funny because up to that point, I hadn't traded since 0.1. So I started out in 0.1 softcore trade just to learn the game like yourself. And then I really disliked the amount of friction that trading had in PoE, like with regards to the website and people not answering you. And like, it's just a
Yeah, there's
weird,
a
clunky
lot.
interface. Like, it was just like, I was like, oh my God, like this feels like I'm playing Diablo 2 all over again in like
Yeah.
2024. So then that's what forced me, not forced me, but that's what persuaded me, I guess, to play SSF. But now, with Timmy's League getting reconnected to like the feels good trading, as you mentioned, like the stuff that's just like kind of brings you back to older games, and then playing with async trade in PoE 1. Holy shit. Like that is just such a game changer. I like can't believe I didn't
Yeah.
try it in 0.3 because it actually makes it so much better, dude. It's
It's
great.
so much better. Yeah, I had a
Yeah.
friend who played a lot of PoE, and then one league he said, "I'm not playing any more PoE until it has an auction house." And then every league I'd be like, "Hey, are you coming back?" He'd be like, "Does it have an auction house?" And I'd be like, "No." He'd be
Yeah.
like, but it's really good." And he'd be like, "No." But now it finally does have an auction house at last. Yeah, it needed it for all these years. It needed it, but I guess there's just a philosophy thing, a desire to retain that essence that D2 had. Like you said, you're like, this feels like I'm playing D2 again. Well, that's exactly what they wanted.
Yep.
By
Yeah.
providing the auction house, that's exactly what they wanted, was the same feeling. Which, to its credit, it does allow you to interact more and talk to each other. But that doesn't work out in softcore trade as well as it works out in small places like hardcore trade. And that's the thing where I think that vision of how the game might have worked out, where you're like, oh, you're trading with the same people and you strike deals and you get to know each other, and that doesn't really happen even without an auction house. That wasn't happening in softcore anyways. So at the end of the day, it's just better to make it more fun. And besides, it's just way more fun to think to yourself when you're about to get on the game, ooh, I wonder if there's money in my tab. Oh, I wonder if there's
Yes,
like a couple
dude.
divine that from something I sold or something like that. You're excited, and then you log in, you're like, well, there's nothing. Damn. Well, I guess I got to get in the map and make something now. So at least
Yeah.
you're like excited to look for that now. So that's a really good thing the game got. And yeah, it's a feels good moment for sure to log in and see money waiting for you in the trade thing.
100%. Yeah, it reminded me of how I felt. And I actually talked about this on like a lot of podcast episodes early on, like a year ago, about how it reminded me of how Maple Story felt, which is another like Korean MMO that I played when I was a kid, kind of in the same era as like RuneScape. And in that
Hmm.
game, they had this merchant system where you could like set up a merchant overnight in this area called the free market. And the free market was basically like a shopping mall where every player in the server could set up their merchants, and you could go there and look at their items and see what people are selling. And it was cool. Even when I was a kid, it would be like another reason for me to want to log in, not only because I wanted to play the game, but I wanted to see what my merchant had. Did I sell that big ticket item that I could buy my next upgrade with? And I always said, like, man, how fucking sick would that be to have in PoE 2? Like, I wish that there was a way to do it. And it's crazy to actually think that there's, after this long, they kind of decided to implement that. And it kind of showcased that
Yeah.
yes, they can be stubborn, but they can make these big changes. Another one that's pretty controversial is about the campaign skip. I know that for me personally, I'm pretty anti-campaign skip. I always view the campaign as something to improve upon, like as a player. How do you feel about it with regards to that particular topic?
I think it's hilarious personally, considering I think the campaign is probably the most balanced part of the game as far as PvP is concerned. So wanting to skip past the campaign is a shame, because as far as like ARPG progression goes, it makes the most sense in the campaign. And then after you get to maps, it goes off into Looney Tunes land almost immediately, basically. So I think from my personal perspective, it's quite silly, because I think it's fun. I mean, every item matters, every flask matters, every upgrade matters so much more in the campaign. And numerically, they just make more sense. If I have no armor gear on versus a physical enemy in the campaign, I get destroyed by them. If I put armor pieces on, I'm pretty tanky to them. Whereas,
Yeah.
you put armor pieces on in the end game, the monster doesn't care. The number is too high. It's too bad. You have the best armor in the game. Well, the number doesn't make sense anymore. Sorry. So that's the thing is, to me, it just makes more sense. Um, to the people who think that, well, to the people who express that they want a campaign skip, I think I get that. They feel the same way that we feel, that the game really begins in the end game, and the campaign, isn't really interesting because you are poor and hitting things with sticks slowly and struggling and having to find your way through a randomized zone and all that stuff. But we all do it, so what's the big deal? I mean, you can do it once or twice for another character. I feel you just got to learn to love it. That's the real key. Don't stop yourself from enjoying something. I think a lot of people in that boat are kind of feeling like, wow, I'm not at the peak earning potential of my character, so I'm wasting my time, and I feel bad about wasting my time. And that's a dangerous perception to take, because you're just going to make yourself unhappy playing the game. I feel that way, you know.
Totally. I think for me, the game already has a campaign skip that I really enjoy, and that's just like unique items and like high level skill gems and like greater perfect jeweler's orbs. Like if you have those three
That's a good
things,
point. Yeah,
you can just destroy the campaign way quicker. And it should essentially, I mean, you still have to, the counter argument to this point is that you still have to play through the campaign, which I think a lot of people
you
just
got to
don't
run
want to
through the
do.
zone. That's the thing
Yeah.
that people really don't want to do, is run through the zone
Hmm.
and get lost, which is understandable, because
Yeah.
running through the zone and getting lost takes a long time. We
Hmm.
do. You move slowly, and the zones are really big. So
Yeah.
yeah, and you get tripped too. Like, you're trying to run through quickly, but you're constantly getting tripped by monsters and then killed by them and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So yeah, I understand why people don't want to do it over and over again, but the reality of it is they're never going to do it. Like, they're so vehemently against the idea of a campaign skip, and they've said it a bunch of times. So that's really where the discussion, unfortunately for everybody who wants it, ends. They're not going to do it because they don't like it. They don't like
I
the idea of
hope
it.
I hope they hold strong on this one. I think the reason why I brought this up was because that particular sentiment was also true about the asynchronous trade, if I'm not mistaken,
It's true.
coming from
It's
somebody
true.
who's from
It's true.
a newer PoE1 player. Like, if you and I talked maybe 2 years ago about an auction house in PoE1, you probably may have had a similar responses to they're very adamantly against this. But as time moves on, it kind of maybe they change their mind. And so I'm just curious as to see like what potentially would happen if they were to come up with a solution for it. I don't know what that solution looks like, and I don't necessarily even think there needs to be one, but there is sort of this overwhelming sentiment from a lot of people who are probably more along the lines of a casual player who don't have the desire to play through the campaign for another 10, 12 hours or something. So yeah, we'll see.
I
We'll
imagine the
see what
best thing you
happens.
could do if you wanted to make it is make this kind of like map feeling thing, because that's what people want to do, right? So you want to make something that feels like a map that you can do from level 1 to level 60 until you're actually doing maps, pretty much. Because people just don't want to do the whole like progressive campaign zone thing. So I think they did something. Well, how they do it in D3? Because they ended up doing that in D3, right? They like had you like jump around from zone to zone, and like zones were like empowered or something like that, kind of like maps or
Yeah,
wastelands or whatever.
D3 did this thing called, I forget if it might be called the adventure mode or something. Sorry guys, I'm
Yeah,
completely
something like
getting this
that.
wrong, but yeah, like I think it was an alternative leveling experience. I don't remember how it worked at all because I haven't played
Yeah,
D3 in many years. But yeah, I know they had something
neither.
different. Yeah. I know that Last Epoch has a different system too, where they have the campaign, but then there are certain points within the campaign that are like these dungeons that you go into. And they're like an alternative way to level up where these dungeons kind of feel more like an end game area and you can level up quicker and you kind of just bounce between these dungeons. So there are definitely ways that people can go about it. But yeah, I don't know. Like I'm curious because at the end of the day, um, I don't think they need it, but who knows if they're going to change their mind on that. We'll see.
I think that on this subject, just to wrap it up, I think that really the one thing that I can draw between the auction house and it being coming into the game, and it's probably not too much of a conspiracy theory to say, is that Chris left. And that was a big thing that Chris was a proponent of, and Jonathan was, more accepting of, potentially. So now we can really say that as far as like founders goes, Jonathan has probably the biggest sway in decision making. And if he's been in interviews talking about there's not going to be a campaign skip, we're not interested in doing that, then until there's no Jonathan, that's probably not going to be the case. And I don't think Jonathan's going anywhere. So yeah, probably not for us in the future.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
I wouldn't put my money on it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think I remember him specifically saying that if players want to skip the campaign, that we made like a mistake or something. And so like, yeah, I think they should hold true to that.
That's a great point too. Yeah, if people aren't having fun with it, then just fix the campaign, then they'll like it, right?
Yeah. It's true. Another thing, as we sort of like talk about contentious aspects of the game, is the Infinite Atlas. What are your general like thoughts about them keeping it or getting rid of it? I know that there's an overwhelming sense of like polarization where some people are like, this works, it just needs to be fine-tuned, whereas some people are like, scrap it, I won't play PoE 2 endgame until something else is there. What are your thoughts about the Infinite Atlas?
I think that this is an infinite topic, that's for sure. Just like the Atlas. And there are problems with it that are immediately apparent. Like you don't have agency over what you're doing. So you're forced to do things that you don't want to do, which is not fun. Right? Running layouts you don't want to do, putting your character, into a room that you don't like to play in, that's not always fun. If you have a character that struggles in narrow hallways, having to be forced to run maps with narrow hallways is not fun. Things like that. And they showed that they understand that with PoE 1 this league by kind of making that less of a issue and, letting you choose which maps you're running. So I have a feeling that whatever their solution is to it, it'll probably address that point. But there's also some really crazy stuff that I don't think really becomes apparent until you've played for like 3 weeks, a month. Like the biggest one to me with the Infinite Atlas is that you end up with this Infinite Atlas, a lot of room on it, and everything available to you is everything you skipped. Every option that you could click on are the worst maps that you didn't want to run in each area of the map. So to find a good node, you're combing through a lot of these zones where you skipped like 95% of them. You're like, oh, did I run all the good nodes? Oh, nope, there's one strand or whatever. There's one sand spit or whatever I wanted to actually run. Oh, nope, there's another hidden grotto. I didn't want to run that. Oh, I didn't run that because that was that map. And then I'm not too organizationally oriented. I can be pretty cluttered and be happy. But for the people who are very swayed to that, I've heard a lot of them express that the whole thing gives them so much anxiety because it's just this big thing. Like I said, a cluttered mess with things that you didn't want to run. You can't like clear it out. It's just there. And you're did I lose something? Did I miss anything? And the more you're feeling that, that's not fun. That's not a fun feeling to feel like you're constantly losing track of stuff and missing out on running stuff, So it's got problems. That's what I think about it. It's got lots of problems. That's just the tip of the iceberg, probably. What do you think about it overall?
Oh, dude, you just awoke something that I kind of forgot about because I haven't played PoE 2 in like a month. But or maybe maybe 3 weeks. But I think the worst feeling that you can have in the Infinite Atlas is when you finally figure out where you want to go next, and then you close it out because you forgot to grab a waystone, and then you open it back up and you lose where
lost.
you were.
Yeah,
and you're like, no,
lost. Yeah.
I just found that map that I want to
things
run.
look very similar. So it's like we're trying to find your place and stuff is very difficult. Yeah, not to mention the technical issues, right? The load, like it'll just like not load sometimes, and yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean though. Like, I got to my highest level was 99 on my one character. And when you're getting to that level, you have to do a ton of maps. And I wasn't leveling up in the temple, so I was basically just like tower hopping to corrupted zones, praying for an increased XP area so I could toss in a T16 and go from there. And the Atlas was just like so infinite at that point, so explored.
Yeah.
And so I think my opinion of it is that I like it. I like the initial I feel like it's really fun to get to maps and have this like basically unexplored thing to go check out. I always say like nothing like a fresh like Infinite Atlas when you get to it. It's just the more you explore it, the shittier it feels.
It really does, yeah. And that's an interesting problem. I feel like that's That's probably an easy one to miss in QA, because you don't
Mhm.
necessarily have people QAing every iteration of your game out to like a month of playing. So that's probably one of those things that just, now that it's in our hands is now apparent. And I'm sure they're, working to address that now.
Absolutely. And yeah, I know that they've talked about how like the exploration aspect of it will feel better with the more content we have. Like I think the unique maps and the boss maps was just such an excellent addition. Like having targetable items from specific maps, like the lineage support gems, another thing that's just like such a huge W for the game coming from specific maps. Is the drop rate of Rakiata's flow too low? Who's to say? But like I like having those things to search for, and I can't wait for
Yeah,
more of
they're
those.
cool.
Yeah. I think what you said really echoes my sentiment where the agency part is something that is lacking. And I honestly think that like, a few pieces of agency will go such a long way for the Infinite Atlas, and it could be enough to basically make it amazing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways they could tweak the system as it stands to make it better. It's hard to say what direction they'll go into, isn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, they could even scrap it completely and go back to a UI based like system like you see in PoE 1. It's we're gonna have to see. I'm excited to see, that's for sure, what next patch. They can't debate us again and not release a Atlas update, right? They can't do that to us again. We're gonna riot. So please.
Surely they won't do that. And I think that
Yeah.
I think it's totally understandable that they're taking a bit longer on this patch because I think when 0.5 comes out, it'll be almost 6 months. It'll be from December until May. So yeah, 5 months or so. And I think that's because they understand that like, you know, the biggest or one of the biggest points of contention for the game has just been the end game since 0.1, right? And it's come leaps and bounds since then. As you mentioned, it does have a long way to go still, but I'm like, boys, cook. If you need 6 months, 6 months. Like we know that GGG can do and will do amazing things. Like, look at Mirage, for example. I do truly believe that 0.5 is going to be good. Do you have any predictions? Like, are you leaning towards maybe a specific class coming out, a specific weapon?
Mm.
What are your some Oscrix predictions for 0.5?
Well, I feel like if I put my money on anything, it would be that the Infinite Atlas is completely gone. That's probably would be my number one prediction, is that they're just gonna get rid of it. Because the issues that we kind of talked about today are very directly tied to just the entire system of it and are difficult to rectify. And it is plagued by system issues, and like it's a huge resource hog because they're all 3D models in the Atlas and stuff like that. So I think it seems to me that they've been focused on making improving the stability of the game and the performance of the game, especially on lower end stuff and consoles and stuff like that. By like recently, they reduced the amount of monsters but increased their quantity. That's a big change. That is a step forward to trying to make the game run better on consoles and stuff like that. So I would guess that it goes away because it's a huge resource hog, and you could just make a UI where people run the maps where they want to, and they're going to think you're a genius, and that's probably a way more time efficient thing than trying to, stomp out all the problems with the current one. As far as content goes, I bet it's sparse. I mean, I would be surprised if we get a new class or even a new weapon type. I'd be more expectant to see 2 to 3 ascendancy classes, maybe more than that, and like maybe they work on some existing systems, update some skills or something like that, and maybe a couple skill gems. But I would guess that it would be a little more sparse since they do have to dedicate a lot of development time to, working on the end game this patch. What about you? You got any sick leaks to let me know about or anything like that? You heard anything on the grapevine?
Oh, dude. I find it still difficult for me to set appropriate expectations for grinding your
Mm,
games because even though I've been playing Path of Exile for more than a year now, I'm still getting used to the amount that they're able to do in an amount of time. Like I think that every patch thus far has been like it has exceeded my expectations. Like 0.3, like when that came out, and I was like, holy fuck, they're adding like interludes and they're adding a new league mechanic and like a new there's just so much shit like packed in, like sprinting, async trade, like all this shit. I was like, oh my god, like these guys, like it's hard to gauge, you know what I mean? Like I think that what you've said feels very realistic, like, really dialing in the end game. I mean, to be frank with you, if that's all they do in 0.5 and nothing else, I will be a happy camper. Because I still think that there's plenty of build opportunities for me to try out that I haven't even played yet. Like I never really even did Varashta or played Wyvern or Bear or like a bunch of other things in 0.5 or 0.4. That being said, though, like I know that they have the potential to just blow us out of the water with this, and so if they were to drop something like a new class, I really hope that it would be, yeah, like, something that people want. A lot of people want swords. Like, I think that that would have a huge draw for many people to come back to the game if they haven't played in a while. And so I think they're very aware of that. But for me, to answer the question simply, as long as the end game is in a much better state and, we get a good league mechanic to go along with it, I'll be a happy camper for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think bladed weapons it should probably be high on the list. I mean, that's kind of crazy that we don't have bladed weapons at this point. I mean, anything bladed would be nice. So, yeah, that's definitely a crazy thing to not have in your fantasy RPG. Oh, I want to hit
Yeah.
something. Whoa, you have to hit him with a stick or a rock. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, like
All right.
anything. If it's swords, axes, daggers, I just think that
Yeah, daggers,
melee,
anything.
we
Yeah.
need it needs some love, dude. We have a lot of really cool ranged class fantasy right now. You can play minions, you can do spell casting, whatever, bows, crossbows and stuff. So yeah, I think they're very aware of that. And
Yeah,
yeah.
Melee could use a fresh coat of paint. That would be awesome to see if they got that because yeah, the archetype is a little bit stifled, just a little bit at this point. More
Yeah.
skills would help.
Definitely. And stuff that maybe doesn't have inherent, like, it'd be cool actually if Melee just got a complete refresher, because they've spoken about how after designing like specific classes or weapons, they've had to go back and readjust things. I remember they talked about this with regards to the Huntress and the Spear, and how they're like, oh, like, we really like how this feels. Like maybe we can go back and adjust things. Hopefully, this is totally copium, by the way, but hopefully when they put in like swords or axes, like they go back and like maybe retweak maces a bit and like remove certain restrictions with them and whatnot. So that'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely possible. I think like overall mechanical changes like are kind of constantly happening now with the game, where like I think last patch they made it. Jonathan in an interview was like, at some point we made it so reloading made you really slow, and I don't even know why that happened, and we had to fix that. And that like happened last patch, where now when you're playing crossbows, you like run at full move speed while reloading, which is a tremendous change to how that archetype feels to play when you're just not 50% slowed half of the time that you're playing or whatever. Um, so I think stuff like that is yeah, that probably will happen for Melee and other archetypes as they like flesh out the general like physical feel of the game and the pacing of stuff and everything like that. They do a good job, I think, keeping track of how it feels mechanically to play the game and tweaking that so far.
Definitely. I'm so excited for this. And yeah, it's weird because I think that this patch, they're very aware of how important it is. I think it is the most like important patch since like 0.3. And so yeah, like, I'm very confident and optimistic as always. Love the game, love GGG, and I know that they're gonna fucking do some crazy shit. Nothing is more exciting than like pre-league like hype where like you're waiting and the teasers are coming out and like the presentation drops. Like it's just a
Yeah, it's
good time to be a
awesome.
PoE gamer, right? Like it feels good.
Yeah, it's like I said earlier, the excitement is infectious and everybody around you's getting excited. Everybody's talking about their league plans, everyone just gets hyped for it. And so always really fun. That's what's kept me coming back pretty much this whole time.
Me too, man. Me too. It's a special thing. As we sort of wrap up and with some like kind of lighthearted closing questions, I kind of wanted to circle back to um, a bit more of a community focused question. So I wanted to just ask you if there's been anybody who's had a big positive impact on you with regards to your content creation, your streaming, anything like that with regards to PoE and whatnot.
I think there's that's a long list. Honestly, that's a long list. More than anything, I've been a viewer, and a consumer of content for a long time in PoE, more than I've been somebody who produces it. And there's a lot of people I've really enjoyed and have been inspired by, as far as like making stuff goes. One of the ones that really sticks out to me as somebody who's really been consistent with what they like to do and doing it well is Mathil, if you know him. He's just always stuck with the game longer than people typically stick with it, and it's because he keeps it interesting for himself by continuously making new characters and trying things out. And he doesn't really restrict himself to, planning it out, looking at the numbers and being like, oh, well, it's not good enough, I'll try something else. He'll just go in the game and play it and try it and, talk about what he's done. But other than that, I mean, tons of people. I'm not even gonna try and list everybody, but I'm very inspired by what everybody does, and I'm always interested in improving, especially when it comes to making something. And mostly when I make stuff, it's just like informative content about builds, or mostly about builds typically. But so yeah, I'm always looking for people's formats and stuff like that. I'm really inspired by FaZe. FaZe has done a great job in PoE2 and PoE1, making really nice, clean, edited videos. That's one thing I struggle to do, and I look at people's content when they're edited really nicely. I think to myself, ugh, I don't want to spend a day plus editing videos and like doing all the cuts and making it shiny and everything like that. So yeah, I'm very inspired by the amount of effort people put in compared to me.
Dude, I'm so happy that you brought up FaZe. I think FaZe, as soon as I started consuming more PoE1 content, instantly became like one of my top like 3 creators on YouTube.
He has been knocking it out of the park. He's been in the community for a long time, but I think it's just in the last like year or so that he's really just like been putting out these really highly produced, shiny looking videos that I really appreciate, and people have appreciated in number too. So yeah, I love to see that. I love to see when people put high effort into it. I just gotta kick myself in the ass to do the editing. I'm not the biggest editing fan. I'm more of the playing the game fan.
Of course, of course. I mean, video editing is its own skill, just the same with playing the game too, right? And oftentimes when
Yeah,
we're bad at something, it's hard to like just buckle up and like learn and like watch shit. And like I think it's especially difficult when you compare yourself like, to people like FaZe. I think FaZe's content, like from a production standpoint, is probably one of the best like pieces of content you can watch on YouTube. Like I want to ask him, like, dude, are you like a video editor for your job? Because like your your videos are just like they should be like on GGG's channel. Like they're so well
they
done.
should be. It's true. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
clean, man. Yeah, I'm very
yeah,
impressed by his work on those. Yep.
yeah.
I definitely think, like you said, I mean, you got to improve at everything, and yeah, I just haven't kicked myself in the ass to watch enough tutorials and learn the hotkeys and get everything in that space yet. But I'll do it one day, surely.
Yeah, my friend's he once said to me that I don't know if you know this person's content, but he's also one of my favorites as well. And I've told him this is Schwingy's videos. He does like kind of randomizer playthroughs where he'll do a random build from a wheel spin and then document the journey, beating his goals. Very very well edited, very funny scripts. And I think what he said was just every time I do a video, I just try to learn one new thing. I don't focus on like making it like the craziest video ever, but over time, those one new things just keep adding up to
Yeah,
his content, right? And so I always keep
that's a
that in
very
mind. Like,
wise way to approach it.
yeah, whenever I do a new video now, I'm like, what's that one thing I'm trying to do with this video that I haven't done before? And that's kind of resonated with me a lot. And so maybe it'll resonate with you guys. Just don't focus on too much shit. It's kind of like playing PoE1. If you focus on the entire fucking ecosystem of content, it's probably going to make you anxious. But if you just focus on one thing, it's makes it a lot easier.
That absolutely is true. You're right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll have to bring that with me into DaVinci Resolve next time.
I wish I could help you. I don't use DaVinci, or I would be down to help you
I
out.
use Premiere too. Yeah, I was using
Yeah.
Premiere like a couple of years ago, but I got into DaVinci. It's been pretty cool software to mess around with now.
Yeah, no, a lot of people really like it. I think Schwingy also uses Premiere or DaVinci as well. Um, as a final question that we wrap up with, this one's a tough one, but I know you got this. What do video games mean to you, and how have they impacted your life?
They mean so much to me, and they've impacted me so tremendously. And, I was definitely a weird kid and stunted developmentally, especially socially. So having the route to socialize with people through video games and that a shared hobby was such a huge deal for me. And so for me, they're a tremendous part of my life in that way. It became a lot easier for me to learn, how to make friends and talk to people when it was over a shared topic, like a video game or a card game or something like that. And yeah, they're massive for me in that way. And just for my general happiness and enrichment, they've been such a big deal. I just love problem solving and puzzles, and games let me occupy my time in such a nice, fun, healthy way in that way, as opposed to being bored, I guess. So yeah, they've meant a lot for me, a lot.
I love that answer, man. Yeah, I think like it's so much easier to bond with people over shared interests, and sometimes in
Yeah,
life it's hard to find that common ground. But anytime I've at like a social gathering, it's initially hard to bring up video games. I think due to them having a like stigma, and they have had a stigma about them for a long time. I do think that that stigma is like slowly receding more. But if like video games get brought up and we can like instantly like be like, yo, what are you playing right now? And it's not like, FIFA, and it's actually something like of substance. It
yeah.
becomes
There's been
so
lots of
easy,
times,
right? Yeah.
yeah, where I've met people in real life, and then a couple sentences later, oh, okay, we both like video games. Well, that's enough for us to be able to talk to each other for probably the next 4 weeks,
Yeah.
or whatever about
100%.
some kind of subject. So yeah, it's great door. And you're right, it used to have such a stigma with it. I definitely used to video game in the closet back when I was a kid. But nowadays, it is such a accepted thing to talk about in public. But online, it's always been one of those things where it's like, well, I just can get online and talk with whoever random person, even if it's something weird like Path of Exile. I'll find somebody that relates to me to talk
I
to.
mean, dude, that's the whole reason why I started this podcast, was because I
Exactly, man.
loved PoE, right? And like I didn't have people to share that interest with and like nerd out about it with. So yeah, I mean, to wrap it up, I just want to say thank you for being part of that and coming on today. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me. It was a really fun chat. Yeah, two like-minded individuals, I think.
Dude, hopefully we get to collab on some painting or mural stuff in the future. If I ever come to Alaska, or if you ever come to Canada, please let me know. We can make something happen. That'd be sick.
We're gonna
Uh,
make something happen, 100%, man. We're gonna make something happen for sure. Either you're gonna find something or I'm gonna find something, and then we're gonna tell each other about it. That's how
Definitely.
most of these collabs with murals go, right?
For sure. For sure. Yeah, just at this point in time, just shout yourself out. Where can we find you? And if you have anything you're going to be working on, please feel free to share that with us as well.
Yeah, I'm Oscrix. I'm on Twitch and YouTube, and that's it. I don't have any other social media presence, but you can get on those, and I make videos, and I play the game.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much again for coming on. Been a blast. As always,
Thanks,
guys,
man.
if you're curious, yeah, of course. If you're curious about checking out Oscrix, I'll leave links to his Twitch, YouTube in the video description. If you're cool with it, I'll also leave a link to that Imgur you have on your Twitch where you can check out his artwork as well, because I know that that's kind of been a
Yeah,
theme
yeah,
throughout the podcast. So go check out his art. He's really dope. You can see in the video right now, he's got a bunch of paintings and stuff around. Yeah, appreciate you
yeah.
guys. If you guys are watching on Twitch or YouTube, thank you so much. And if you're watching the actual video on YouTube as well, I appreciate that. Got more podcasts lined up in the future, so stay tuned for those. Until next time, have fun, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Peace.
Bye.
All right, everybody, that wraps it up for this episode of the Passive Tree Podcast. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate a like and subscribe for more PoE2 content. I have a bunch more episodes of the podcast lined up with some really great guests, so keep your eyes peeled for that. If you're interested in supporting the podcast and the channel, consider supporting through Patreon. There's a link in the video description. A special shout out to Kevin F. for supporting this channel. I appreciate you. Thank you. And until next time, happy blasting, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.